good evening. Happy Friday. Hopefully your week has gone well. I can see a couple of you are sitting there waiting, so you'll have to let me know how things are going. Hopefully your week's gone all right. So, a couple of fun things that we'll talk about. Hobby-wise, it's been pretty straightforward, pretty quiet. We did have a new record sale for basketball. So LeBron, for some reason, 5.2 million tends to be a very popular number. I don't know why specifically, but apparently it is a popular number. But yeah, as far as that's concerned, hobby wise, it's been kind of interesting. I did catch on Sports Collectors Daily, there was an article that I caught that was kind of interesting. So I'll bring that up in a minute. But otherwise, yeah, it'll be kind of open ended and kind of whatever you guys want to talk about. I'll talk about the article a little bit. We'll have a little fun with that. That'll be kind of fun. And that'll be interesting. We'll go from there and we'll play it one step at a time here. So let's take a look here. So Jeff, save the Super League. Yes, absolutely. Without a question, save the Super League. No doubt. So good evening, Jeff. Yeah, the Friday night sports card hobby space. Yeah. Well, the crossover guys, they have their own deal. So they, I don't think we're threatening them. I don't think we're threatening them in any way. But yeah, we've got our own niche. They've got their thing they're going to be doing. So that's always kind of the way it goes. So good evening to Carter C. Hey, happy you're popping in. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you popping by. 90s Hockey Collector, good evening. And Hockey, anybody buying low on Roberto Alomar? Yeah, the Roberto Alomar story is interesting. I will say, though, I would be very shocked if that has any real impact on his cards, in all honesty. Just because, like, he's been retired long enough. Now, unless he does something even more egregious, then basically what comes after that is then, yeah, his card would take a dip. But in fairness, like, he's already in the Hall of Fame. So if you were interested in his stuff, you probably can get it. I don't think his prices are going to go up very much anymore. But I don't know how much they could crash or go down. I guess for some people it might sell. If there's a sell-off, if you're a collector, you can probably buy low, but I just don't know if it would go very low. I think it's kind of a done deal for Alomar one way or the other. So yeah, Rodgers to the Broncos is one of the big rumors. We'll definitely we'll chat a little bit about the NFL draft a little bit, and we'll see if a couple of guys pop on to chat about it as well. But I thought I would wear the uniform. I thought it'd be appropriate given this. This was one that I got before Super Bowl 45, so I've had it for a while. So he might not be wearing this uniform very much longer. So I thought I'd have a little fun with it. So Bobby, if you're good, just nod and let me know. Sounds good. Good evening, Bobby. How's it going? Nope. He knows the routine. So good evening to Yannick. And yeah. Well, they do tend to. That is true. They do tend to go very basketball heavy, no doubt. We try to do a balance. There tends to be a lot of hockey here, but that's not because I'm opposed to going to the other sports. I'd love to talk more baseball cards, but it's really a matter of folks either who are on, or questions have to be directed a little bit more in that direction. I'm happy to talk about it. Football, I'm less versed, but I am familiar, and it's one of those things where I'll talk about it if it's something worth talking about. And we do talk about basketball a little bit in the context, in the overall, just because it's relevant. It's where the big money is right now. Like, in all honesty, out of the four major sports, North American sports, basketball is the big money bringer. We know that. So we do discuss it. It's just obviously I don't collect that very much, so I can't speak to it too heavily. But I do have some of the guys who come on here do collect basketball, so we can always pick their brains if they're on and there's something you want to know. All right, Bobby, give it a shot. How's it going?
Pretty good. How's it working?
No, perfect. You are good.
Wonderful.
How'd the week treat you?
That was a good week. Did a little work around the house. Had some contractors in spending some money not on knickknacks.
Nice.
So pretty good.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the basketball. So many other places cover basketball. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of a hockey, baseball, and football.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that part of the reason, though, that they do that is that that's what they're passionate about. I would rather they talk about what they're passionate about. Like, they legitimately do collect and enjoy basketball, and they can talk about the game. I don't watch the game. I'll watch some playoff games here and there. Like, my interest level just isn't there. So I can't manufacture some interest that I don't have. But in the general context of the hobby, I pay attention because it's relevant.
Sure.
But my interest in the sport isn't there. So it's like, I'm not gonna fake it. I don't think that would be the benefit of anybody.
No, true enough.
So let me go here. Yeah, more respect for well-versed sports generalists and do people who don't like one sport. That's fair. Yeah, we try to be versed, and I've even dabbled a little bit when Aussie Card Dad is around. I joke a little bit. I actually do legitimately like Aussie Rules football. It's just a bit of a pain to get to watch it. Although I did find out that TSN around here, the streaming section of it, when you can catch some of the old games, you can watch replays. They do have Aussie Rules football and replays, and I'm like, yes, all right, I can watch it on my time when it's a little bit more convenient. So I think that's fair. So that's always good. So let's take a look here. So Cardi C says, I got a question for you. Select football. I haven't seen any breaks or anything, but it looks like they'll have all the key rookies and XRCs of guys that got drafted. How's that work? They've got their own rules as far as who can be included. Now, the thing is, I have seen a couple of breaks of it. I have to look at the checklist, but I do know that they're very loose on the rule, because one of the things that football can do, that they've done, is that they can show the players, because Score does this a lot in football. They'll show the players with their college team. So they can, because if you go back to like, I want to say the year that Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and all that. I don't collect football all the time, but I've definitely opened up some packs and stuff. The Score, since it was so early in the year, Baker Mayfield was playing for, I think, Oklahoma. I probably totally butchered which college team it was, but Sam Darnold was on his college team, and all the players were in their college uniforms. So you can definitely have the players in the checklist, and I'm pretty confident that they could do that with Select as well. But I suppose they could. The thing is, you wouldn't be able to airbrush any of these guys. Like if Trevor Lawrence was in any of these things, we all knew where he was going to get drafted and probably where he was going to go, but you couldn't be 100% sure, and you'd look kind of foolish if you had gone with the Jaguars and for some reason they had traded the pick. You would look kind of stupid. It's like, actually, no, he didn't go to that team, even though we all suspected he would. I think, though, the fact that they can picture them in the college team, I'd like to see the checklist and see what the player looks like in Select, though. Obviously, Select is out. I have seen some of the stuff broken, but it's definitely something. So let me look here. Yeah, the redemptions might be a possibility, though. If it's an XRC, though, the redemption might be a good way to get around it. So I wouldn't sleep on that, courtesy. That might be actually the way they get around it. But I do know they have definitely used the college football, because Jordan Love, before he ever got drafted, he was in the draft pick set. So Panini can make those, and that makes it easy for them. That way they don't have to hedge their bets.
Are we using XRC still, or are we going with
Panini
PRC?
uses it. Panini actually calls their own thing an XRC.
My mistake. Sorry. Yeah.
So they've chosen to call it that way just because they know that it's ahead of time. They don't have a pro team yet, so it's fine if they're going to use it and they're going to include it as part of their brand. Whether the hobby accepts it as, the categories and things we're talking about, that's a different suggestion. But if Panini wants to call it an XRC for themselves and just call it that, I'm fine with it. It's okay. Yep, no worries. Appreciate it. So let me read this one here. Hockey Guy says, Ultra Pro replied to me regarding top loaders earlier today. They started making them in 1996. Okay. So Ultra Pro specifically making top loaders in 96. So there could have been another manufacturer beforehand, but Ultra Pro themselves say they started in 96, which, okay. That seems fair. Mid-90s. Okay.
Well, go back to the other question. Is like, who invented the top loader?
Yeah. Well, that is a deeper question, Bobby. That is a deeper question. But anyway, yeah, similar to yourself, I was trying to fix some stuff around the house, and then also I was having some problem with the freezer breaking down. So I actually bought a chest freezer, and then I had brought in and then set it up and got everything going. So now it's working properly, but I still got to I got to do a little handiwork and fix the refrigerator myself, because I don't want to replace it. It's only like 3 or 4 years old. And I'm like, I'm not replacing you 3 or 4 years old. No.
I thought your basement there was the freezer.
Well, I wish it was the basement. This is the main floor. This is the main floor.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So it's two floors. The bedrooms are upstairs, and this is the main floor with the living room and stuff. But yeah, it can be. This time of year, it's not so bad, though. This is actually the best time of the year weather-wise, because it's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's right in the middle. So it's actually not bad. I don't have to have the heater or the air conditioner on. So it's fine. Money. So it's I can't complain. So anyway, hopefully, like I mentioned earlier, hopefully you guys are having a good week. Anything particular you guys want to talk about? Because I do have the story. So in Sports Collectors Daily, Bobby, we talked about it briefly, like really just mentioned it briefly. You did publish an article, so I'll pull that up in a second as well. But apparently there was a cache of tobacco cards that were discovered. And I only caught wind of this earlier today. I was scanning it a little bit, but there's some good stuff in there. I was very impressed. If you want to talk about the vintage baseball side of it.
And another cache of unopened wax. I posted in another group on Facebook, Vintage Wax Pack Collectors, that we all missed this wax out of Delaware, of all places. Okay. And there is 3 boxes of Gretzky. There is 15 boxes of Lemieux's rookie. There
That was
was
this Opeachy or Tops?
Opeachy, surprisingly.
Okay.
There's lots of tops. There was 72 baseball. There was 68 Fleer. There was just unbelievable amount. 16 pages of at least 40, 50 listings per page. It was just unbelievable.
Sure.
And everyone's going, what happened? Why did I miss this? It was advertised in the SCD. Little box in the corner. It was a quarter ad. Okay, here we go. Let's get into the tobacco cart. I'd like to see what happened.
So this one's interesting. So this one apparently they found it in Georgia, and 2,000 T206s, which is huge. That's a big cache. At this stage in the game, a lot of the big finds have been had. So the fact that there is a grouping of this size still in 2021 is massive. I'm very impressed, including dozens of Hall of Famers, including T210 Old Mill, which I am familiar with because I used to read the old SCD. That's an obscure brand though. That's the Old Mill is used in different cards, but the T210s are I want to say Pacific Coast League, maybe. I know it's not quote unquote Major League. It's not American League and National League. It's one of the other offshoots, but including Shoeless Joe Jackson. So like that's huge. And 180 T205s. So like it's a nice grouping. Like these are the
I love the red borders. Yeah,
these beautiful. Are the T210s, which are very they're not
centering's a bugger, but
yeah, for sure. So you've got, and having the Shoeless Joe Jackson is huge. Like that's the key card in that series. So that's a big one. But then look at these T206s. So there's 3 Cobbs right at the top with the bat on shoulder. Here's 2 more. How about the red back? So a bunch of those, a whole stack of them. And then how about some greenbacks? So with the greenback.
The print variation between the go up a bit. Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a whole stack of them, and then you got the bat off shoulder Ty Cobb. So like a bunch of Ty Cobbs. Like it's an impressive. Like somebody clearly put together. They hoarded them, and they're not all like super high condition. There's some that are super beat up. And then here's some T205s. Here's another couple of Cobbs down here. You know, Hal Chase. You've got that. And then here back to the T206s. You got Cy Young. Both portrait and the action poses. Like you've got a couple of those, whole stack of them. Like Walter Johnson, whole row of those. Like that's crazy. I'm very impressive. As far as a collection, like I said, not all high condition. Some of them, the higher condition ones, are going to apparently send them for grading and then auction them off through Heritage, which makes perfect sense. But a cachet of that size in 2021, that's impressive.
Yeah, maybe not quality of a card condition, but certainly quantity. Wow.
Yeah, for the high end, for the big Hall of Fame, like a cachet of, they weren't doing filler. they had a lot of quality pieces and multiples, multiple Ty Cobbs, multiple one, and 3 variants of Ty Cobb. So it's like pick your poison. You got the bat on shoulder, bat off shoulder, the 2 portraits. Sorry, 4 versions. It's just like that's impressive.
Interesting.
So it leaves hope that there's still some more cachets out there. Like
there's a lot more
of those cards. Yeah,
there's a lot more
of those cards.
A lot more yet to be found or come to market. Yeah. And a lot of things go private too, so you never really find out.
Yeah. And anything like that still survive, even the lower condition ones. Like that's good news for collectors that may still have a shot. Because for some of those lower condition ones, if they make it onto the market, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Gives them an opportunity to get their hands on it where, probably for a reasonable price.
Oh, definitely.
Nothing wrong with that. So let me touch on these questions here. So actually, let me do this one first from Hockey and then 2 from Hockey Guy. So I think the hobby is starting to go back to collecting what you like and not buying any high pop card in sight. If I'm correct, is there a point to data tools going forward? I think it's very dangerous to make a sweeping assumption on what the hobby is doing with short-term trends. I think the hobby is in who. There are people that are definitely doing that. Like that's not the part I'm questioning. The thing is, you say that until the next influx of cash. Like it was going for so long, endlessly just throwing more and more money into it. It's like some of those, like I said, the LeBron card, went for 5.2 million, which is going to throw some more people to go look through their stuff and try to put it in. And the high pop cards, a lot of them have settled in to either collections or groupings or stacks that dealers and, flippers are putting together. If they sit for a little while and they don't appear in abundance, then the opportunity presents itself for another run in the next little while. But you're not going to, it was never going to be this consistent, just keep going, keep going, keep going forever. That mathematically is impossible. You have to have some adjustment period, a dip. And then suddenly some people will start to think, if it dips enough, some people will suddenly think, oh, it's a bargain now. And then they'll buy, and then it comes back up. It has to have ebbs and flows. A normal market has to have ebbs and flows. And we've been in an accelerated one compared to normal. The other piece here is, if I'm correct, is there any point the data tools going forward? Well, because you still have ebbs and flows. If you didn't have a use for data tools before, you don't now. But you also didn't have them before, so it doesn't make a difference to you whether the data tools are used or not. Yeah. But for somebody who's still buying and selling stuff in the market, yes. Because even if the market settles down, there's still going to be some cards that are going to have some fluctuation. That's what a data tool is as a tool. If you're using it as a tool, it's to give you an insight on what the current is and what the most recent, action has gone price-wise. Either something's trending up or trending down, or it's kind of just fluttering in the middle. That's what a data tool is for. So if you needed it before, you probably still need it now. If you didn't need it before, then why would you need it now?
So
yeah. So Hockey Guy here says, hey, Bobby, who's the oldest supply company? So I guess just like card supplies in general.
Well, I don't know. We can go back to the early lockers of the 60s.
Yeah, if you would consider that a supply, I think that would be a possibility. Because it's one of those things, like you go through the different, I guess it also depends on what type of supply, right?
We're talking ice cubes, or that's about as early as you get, I would think, supply type of, preservation type of format.
Yeah, you basically would be looking. I feel like a box, something like those lockers or shoe boxes and things like that, like ones that were designed specifically to hold the cards, would be like the earliest, I would think.
I have a very early one. I'll go get it. 1 second.
Sure. While you're doing that, I'll go to the next one here. Fresh Bet Sports Card says, I know of a stash of 1923 William Pettersson hockey and 1924 Willards chocolate cards, but I just can't get the holder to sell. They're all good in a scrapbook with still in great collection. No, that's cool. It's tricky because anytime you have a card like that, you end up running into, maybe there's a sentimental value to it, or maybe because it's old, they think it might be worth even more if they hold it longer. There could be different motivations. I guess it really comes down to whether the seller feels like they need to sell. Like if they don't need to sell, then there's nothing you can do to get them to do it. But if it's something that sometimes persistent pays off, it's just you got to find the right level of persistence that's keeps you in the front of mind, but doesn't become borderline harassment. Because it's at that point, then they won't sell to you out of spite. I guess it just depends on whether they feel like they need to. Because sometimes people will have some of this stuff and they've got almost nothing into it, but at the same time, they don't need the money. So if you don't need the money, you just like the stuff, then they're going. Okay, so here we go. So they're valuing them at PSA prices they see on eBay. Yeah. But if they think it's worth more than what you think it's worth, you're going to have probably a tough time finding something in the middle. Because there are people who will be convinced that because it's old, that it's worth top of the market, and there's nothing you can do to sway them off of it. It is one of the best motivators there is, without a doubt. That's the other little side play of me wearing the jersey, is that I'm a fan, and my stance on the whole situation with Rodgers is that I think it's a divorce that probably should have happened a couple of years ago. And I'll support the player. I'll continue to support the player, and I'll continue to support the team. But I don't think they should be together anymore. I think at this point there is plenty of spite. Speaking of spite, I think the player really wants to go. I think if Rodgers wants to go, I think they should let him, because Green Bay made some very, very poor calculations. Because to me, it was kind of obvious that it's like, okay, he is in his late 30s. He's not the long-term future. You know that. And that's logical. That makes sense. But at the same time, even if you're succession planning, like they've managed to successfully botch 2 different quarterback succession plans so far. They botched one going from Favre to Rodgers, and now they're working on botching one going from Rodgers to Jordan Love, ? I don't know if that's the answer, but they're not very good at the succession planning. Even when they get to the point that you think, okay, yeah, we're gonna have to move on. And they've been so fortunate to have such great quarterback play for so long that it's like, but guys, you have to plan. At a certain point, these players will get older, and they're in like the worst possible spot where there's almost no motivation for Rodgers to come back, unless you basically overpay him absurdly. But I don't think he even wants to, unless you ridiculously overpay him. It's like, there's no desire on that end of it. Yep, that's been their MO. That's been their MO so far. Going back to the early '90s, because between Favre and Rodgers, that's taken them from about, I want to say 91 or 92 all the way till about now. So that's about 30 years. It's a pretty good run though, with 2 quarterbacks. A lot of teams don't have that. So what do you got, Bobby? You said you had a box or something?
Yeah, it's an old collector's box.
Okay, gotcha.
You can see it's old just by the design of it.
Yep.
You know, it's a traditional box. Just I think these were advertised in the 70s. So your traditional like team set box or whatever. But
what I think is interesting, I like that it's got the extra flap to like lock it in.
Yeah, quality back in the day, right? Where it really locked it in really well. So it is a nice box, nice design. So you could put your.
Okay, so the label's a good. To be honest, the label's a good idea. I would like to see some of the current manufacturers put a label on the side of the box. It'd be handy. It'd be nice to have.
Yeah.
Simple thing, but the little labeling goes a long way.
So yeah, you would check off whether somebody wrote something over there, but baseball, football, or miscellaneous.
Right.
So it was. I bought it because it looked old and it was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
So let me grab hockey guys comment here. Yeah, if my place of work hired someone to take my job, I would quit or not cooperate on the way out. Now this is interesting because I agree with you, but this is what's interesting. Maybe you can throw in your 2 cents here, Bobby, too. So the short version is that whenever people think of professional athletes, they try to almost separate them out to the dynamics of a regular workplace. But like a lot of the reason being the money. But the problem is professional football is different because most of the players' money is not guaranteed. So it's like there is a certain amount of guaranteed money. But if I go to my job and I do my job and I don't get fired, as long as I show up to work and do my job, I get paid. I get paid whatever my contract is. If they want to try to change the terms of the contract, I can take them to court. There's a bunch of things I can do. It just depends on what the situation is because I've agreed to get paid X. They want to try to renegotiate it. We can do that, but that's got to be something we basically go through. But what happens is if you're on a contract where, yes, you'll get paid if you show up to work and if we feel like retaining your services, but I can cut you and just basically fire you on the spot and not have to pay you anymore because the guaranteed money's run out. It's a one-sided relationship. Now, nobody is suggesting that they're going to change anything now, and because the NFL loves this model, they kind of had a lot of control over it. But what happens here in this situation is that the player just came off an MVP season, so his value, as far as that's concerned, is. But they don't have a logical succession plan. They have a player who could potentially take the spot, but nobody knows if he's good enough to be able to do that today. On the one hand, they have almost no leverage. On the other hand, they can say, well, we hold the rights to your contract, but then the player has made enough money in his career. We can say, well, then I'll retire. So then you get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this, almost mutually, but it could have all been mitigated. It could have all been avoided. When they drafted a quarterback who is potentially going to be the replacement, that's a bad signal. But at the same time, you can still make that work if you say like, look, we're going to have him take over, but it's going to happen over the next couple of years. Here's some money for you. And then let's play the season out and then let's figure out if you want to go land somewhere. But you plan it out ahead of time and you have that conversation and maybe you can make that work. But if you just kind of do it, you don't tell anybody, you don't say, hey, by the way, this is coming. Because if the plan had gone, I think according to the way they would have liked it, they would have liked maybe Rodgers to play another year or two and then Jordan Love takes over. And if you plan it out that way in such a way where at the end of that 2 years, if you're still playing well and you still want to keep playing, then we'll trade you to somebody. Maybe that's an arrangement you can make. Not ideal, not perfect, but at least if you do it in the context of, all right, let's sit down and talk this over and see if we can figure it out. But you have that conversation a year or two ago, not now. So now it's like, well, now it's a bit late. So now it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see if he can kind of pressure his way out of the situation. I think though, for the team's sake and for the players' sake, they should probably go their separate ways. It would probably be for the best. That way the team can get something out of it and the player can go try to play somewhere else and see if they can do better.
Yeah, it's a hard comparative between a professional sports athlete and a regular working job. The demand isn't there for top people in the industry. Yes, I can see that. Mm-hmm. But for professional sports, it's so much more different and so much more money. And there's a lot of diversity in that where, you can get traded. You want to get traded. Yeah, you can renegotiate contracts. You can be private. There's so many different outlets where it doesn't really pertain to a regular job, but I get the premise is all there. But,
I will say I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was trying to think if there was any analogy I could use in kind of a regular work environment that will help. And I thought of one. This is the best I can do. I thought of one. In the business that I work in, we work under projects. And your success or failure is contingent upon your ability to look, here's the project. This is the objective. This is what we want you to get done. This is how long it should take, whatever. Don't worry about the particular, but the important thing is there's a project and there's a success or failure. You can measure success or failure depending on how well you did this. You being the person who is in charge of this project, or at least, part of the people in charge of this project, it looks bad on you if you fail. But at the same time, you're part of a team. There's only so much you can do. You're only as good as your weakest link. So you being largely responsible, you will get blamed if you fail. You will get a lot of the blame. It is incumbent upon you to try to put yourself in the best position to succeed. That's where you go and say, look, even if you're really, really good at what you do, there are limits to how much you can do to make this project work, because you can't be in every place at the same time, and not all those skills are your skills. There's certain things that you do well that are going to help. Even if you're the key cog here, if one of the other pieces is not working, it can torpedo the whole thing and wreck your success, even if everybody else does their job beautifully. Understanding this, as part of your job, you've got to understand that and be like, hey, we're working on this project and we need a programmer here to do this, or we're done. We're only going to get so far. We'll get to that spot. We'll get real close and we will fall short. We'll miss the target, whatever that is. So we need one of these and we need one of these. These are the two things that I need. So the NFL draft is the equivalent of the opportunity for them to hire somebody. That's what I'm saying, the analogy. So you know what the needs are. There's certain needs. Could you upgrade one of the other positions? Yes, of course. You could get someone who's a little bit better at this, but that's not going to fix your problem. You've identified your problems. It's one of these two things. So in this situation, you explain, you identify these problems, and then they go and is that good news? We hired somebody. Excellent. Who'd you hire? A marketing guy. That is literally not what I needed. That is not what I needed. That is the exact opposite of what I needed. Even if they're a better marketing guy than the marketing guy we already have, that does not fix my actual problem. It doesn't get me any closer to the destination that we're trying to get to.
Sounds like the Leafs over the years. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's literally that's the best analogy that I can put to someone who works in this kind of environment where, yes, you upgraded something, but you didn't upgrade the thing that's going to help us get to the place you want us to get to. So then when we fail, you'll be like, oh, but we upgraded this thing. But you didn't fix my actual problem. You fixed something that wasn't a problem.
Well, like the Super Bowl, I guess that's the analogy we're working on, is that getting to the Super Bowl, even if you finish second and maybe you're a last place team that came up forward, that's a success.
Yes.
Whereas it's a failure in the job because maybe you didn't get the contract or you weren't successful, whatever it is that you're working on. So it's about as close as you can get.
Yeah. And expectations, though, are also killer, because if you were last place and you got last year and you got to the Super Bowl this year, by most metrics, that will be deemed a success for everybody involved. Sure. Everybody did a great job. But if you're right on the cusp all the time, you're consistently in the conversation, you're seen as someone who can get to the Super Bowl and you fall short, then the question becomes, what did you do wrong? Now, part of that is going to be on you, but part of it is also going to be like, but I've identified these areas where I know that if we're a little bit better here, the likelihood of us achieving our goal is greater. But you didn't help me. And I asked you for this last year and you didn't help me. And I asked you for the year before and you didn't help me. And I'm still telling you the same problem is still here. You haven't fixed the problem. And I'm not the one who's in a position to fix it. I cannot fix it.
The great quarterback with a poor defense, right?
Yeah. I can identify the problem. I can point and say, like, look, I think I know where the issue is. But it is your job to get me the personnel to do what I need to do. But replacing the marketing guy for the fourth time and getting a slightly better marketing guy is still not going to get me where I need to go.
I think it's easier to measure athletes' performance opposed to employees' performance, for sure. Yeah. Because that's hidden a lot. And actually, supervisors kind of go, they get overlooked often, where they'll blame their staff, but it's really not their staff. It's maybe just the manager. And there's only one person looking down on the manager, and he's a good friend of his. He thinks he's doing a great job, but he's blaming the other people below that. And that happens all over the place. Poor coach will blame his team.
Yeah,
Same kind of thing.
And that's why I say, like, the analogy isn't perfect because we know it's never going to be, but it was the best one that I could think of earlier today, because I said, because a project does have a lot of elements to it. There is a team, and you can totally, everybody can work as hard as you want. You can say, oh, work harder. We can, but that'll still only get us so far. If there's something missing that we needed, some skill set, or maybe a certain type of person who does certain type of work better than we can, we will never be able to offset that. It doesn't matter what the rest of us do. So we can try as hard as we like. Try harder. It's not going to help. And that's a reality. That's a reality in the working world. It's a reality in professional sports. There are some teams that are not built in a way that's going to be conducive to success. It doesn't matter if you swap out one or two people. That's not going to fix the problem.
Mhm.
And other times, somebody will walk into a situation that just so happens to fit perfectly, and they're just the missing piece of the puzzle. And then success.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting is that the Packers have themselves in this weird situation where they're
They
almost
always
delaying
do.
the inevitable. They're delaying the inevitable, though, because they've had 30 years of quality quarterback play, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. They have 3 Super Bowl appearances and 2 wins to show for it, which isn't terrible. It's better than some franchises can boast, so that's not the worst. But it feels like a lot of missed opportunities and a ton of untapped potential. And it's like, that feels like the bare minimum you could have gotten out of that situation, because other franchises
Mhm.
sitting there going like, we haven't had one good quarterback.
Yeah, and we
One.
still won. We won 3.
Yeah. It's like one. And you're almost going like, oh, well, you're going to have to defy the odds and get another one just to extend your window to keep trying. And for some reason, you don't seem capable of actually structuring and building this team.
No.
So as soon as Rodgers goes, then it's going to be like, well, now if you fail, it's not going to be his fault because he's not involved anymore. Now it's you and the team you built. And if they suck now, everybody's going to look at you and go, you were the problem.
Yes.
You know, he's actually the perfect fall guy for them right now. And he's masked a lot of their flaws. And the moment he walks out the door, it's like, it's you guys. It's whatever you did. Because if this team's no good now, it's you.
Uh-huh.
Because it shouldn't be one player in theory that's making the whole thing work. That shouldn't be the case. And I don't think it's 100% the case, but I just don't know if that team's actually that good outside of the combination they've got. I think the combination is good, but not good enough.
But weird things happen. You know, look at the 67 Leafs, a team that on paper didn't look very good. And why they won? Surprised.
I would say, though, it helped that they at least had some experienced hands that had experienced success in the rest of the 60s.
True enough.
They actually, like in the 60s, right up until that point, they had success. They had won other championships in that decade, and now they were on their last gas. This was the last legs. After that, it was done. But
most of them were mature players. So yeah.
But at least they were able to reach back and say, okay, we have been here before. We've done some of this already. We know what to do. But after this, that's it. There's nothing left. No,
there's only 6 teams. So
that's right.
Kind of funny.
Yep. Anyway, so that's so we'll maybe touch on some of the more of that later. But anyway, so question, guys, you guys have to let me know. What do you want to chat about tonight? I'm kind of open-ended. We can definitely chat a little bit about the draft if any of you watch that. I like the draft because it's interesting to watch as a show, but I got to be honest, it feels too long. The time between picks is like, look, guys,
Forever.
I don't need you to, like, you guys are just like, now you're just doing this. Just filling time. It's like, oh my God. And it's problematic because my team was picking 29th. So I'm sitting there like, oh my God, do I literally have to sit here? Like, usually I'll hang in for the first couple picks. I'm curious what the top of the food chain there is going, which players are going where. I'm interested. And then I'll sit there and hang in until my team picks. But the problem is they were picking 29th this year. I'm like, oh my God, it's like 3 hours.
And it's not like you're watching Kevin Costner in Draft Day. You know, that was an amazing movie. If you ever saw it.
It was fun. It was a funny movie. I enjoyed it.
It's really well done.
I got a kick out of it.
But the real part is not quite even like that. So
no, it just went like, it felt like it took forever. And even between that's a situation where you have it on the TV, and when it looks like a pick's about to be made, you put the volume back up, but in the meantime you watch something else, because I'm like, I cannot. I just can't sit here and listen to these guys yammer on for 3 hours.
I did send you the link to that auction. It's your choice to look through it, but it's quite phenomenal. And cards.
Now, this is an auction, you said, sorry?
It was an auction that was complete.
Okay,
Yeah.
a completed auction. Gotcha.
And it shows all the final prices, but just the volume. And then it gets 16 pages, but I mean, every page is so interesting because there's 30, 40, 50 items per page. It's just mind-blowing. And then they get into the back part where there's all these bobbleheads and card sets from the 50s and the top end star. It was just one of those unbelievable volume of that you'll never see
gotcha.
again.
Sure. Yeah, I'll put it up here in a second. I've got it on the screen, so I'll put it up here in a sec. Let me grab a couple of these comments here.
Sure.
So Jeff says, will Canadian cities see a resurgence of local card shows like the early 90s? No. No, the early 90s was really crazy. Now, do I think there'll be a little bit of a pickup? Yes, a little bit, comparatively. Now, the caveat here is when we are all vaccinated. That's a big if. And at the rate we're going, you're discussing 2023. We might not have that much momentum to ride a couple more years. But will it be elevated? Theoretically, yes. Like if we're at the stage where people can move around, we can have American dealers, we can have the full complement. Some of it might happen just because some of the Americans might come up also to participate, which would automatically bolster the attendance of some of these shows, especially in border towns and things like that, where the accessibility is there. Something like the Expo could certainly see a boost if more Americans came up, like trying to hunt for deals and stuff.
I think if it happened in November, with all that was going on, the volume would have doubled at the Expo for sure, 100%.
Oh, this year for sure. Yeah, this year there would have been. Now, look, November's November. We haven't completely thrown it out. The likelihood is low. I will put the likelihood super low.
It's kind of coming up a little bit.
I don't think the vaccinations are anywhere near at the rate they're going to need. And they would also have to open the border. And they would have to open the border. Like, if you don't open the border, there's no point even trying it.
But I think most people will be finished by, most people will be finished their second dose that are, let's say, 40 and up by September. So you have November. I don't know. You're right. No, it's a tough call. It was actually a no, and now I think we're possible.
Yeah, I think it would be a couple of things would have to go right. Let's put it this way. They can't afford too many more mistakes and too many more setbacks.
Yeah.
One or two Canadian more of those, and then the thing's done.
Yeah, Canadian government, though. So you know what's going to happen. Something's going to screw up.
Yeah. All right, so Hockey says here, the NFL draft is exciting to watch because this moment can change their lives and their families' lives. Watching the NHL draft, they already come from rich families. Hockey players are not underdogs. No, I get what you're saying. If you like the story behind it, it's fine. Call me unsentimental. I don't care. No, like, honestly, I don't. Good for them. Good for them. Don't care. Like, my main interest is if the player's good. My main interest is if the fit is good for the team, if it fits. Now, if the families do well and the players do well, I'm rooting for all of them to do well. That's two different things. But the story itself doesn't excite me because it's the same story. Like if that's the thing you're talking about, it's like it changed their lives. It's like literally that's the NFL at this point sells that. The picks in the first round, it sells it. By the way, if you saw Trevor Lawrence and some of those other guys, it didn't change his family's life. Some of the players, yes. Some of the players, definitely. Not all of them. Some of the first round quarterbacks, they would have been fine either way. Trevor Lawrence literally had conversations. They had an interview with Sports Illustrated, I want to say, that he puts football in perspective. Let's just say Trevor Lawrence would be fine if football ended for him today or yesterday or the day before. He'd be fine. He'd move on with his life. But I get your point. I think if the story, though, is interesting to you, it's compelling, that's fair. I can get that. I can respect that. And I think that does keep some people drawn in. So I don't think you're alone. I'll put it that way. I don't think you're alone. Let me quickly skip through here. Yep, Jeff says he hopes so. Here. NHL Pro Set 91-92 is the most fun and best looking set of all time. Am I crazy to say this?
He's crazy tonight.
Yeah, like you're right up there. You lost me. You lost me at Pro Set, and you double lost me at 91-92. I think 91-92 Pro Set isn't bad, but most fun? Why? Best looking? If it's your aesthetic, I don't mind it. But like most fun? Why? I don't. I remember 91-92. I remember opening packs of it and stuff. Like it's fine. Like it's not terrible, but I don't see that much interest in it.
Kinda is.
Well, it's terrible because it's Pro Set. It's not terrible because of
The shots weren't too bad, I guess, but
it's
just
not amazing.
yeah.
Actually, what I'll do, and I'll do it in a couple of minutes. I've got the binders there, all the 90s ones. I know I have the Medana from 91, 92 Pro Set. I'll grab it in a minute and I'll show it as a visual reference for folks. So here, I'm not down with flea market crowds prior to the pandemic, so no appetite to be shopping around with so many people. eBay and ComC for the win. No, that's fair. For some people, they're not going to be. If it does get busier, some people are just not going to be comfortable with that. They're vaccinated or not. It's like if it's like a big crowd, some people don't like really, really big crowds anyway. And then bunch them up and people just like jumping over each other. And there's already been folks that have talked about card shows where they said that their experiences is that they have the young guys walking around, trying to do their own mini Sasha T versions, but they don't. Let's put it this way. You can say whatever you want about Sasha T. He at least understands how to do business from the perspective of he's not running around yelling at people. He's not like chasing people down to make deals. He'll set up a table himself, or he'll hang out with one of his friends setting up a table, and then they'll do business and deals. Or he'll walk up to the dealer, wait for the moment, and then start talking, and they have a conversation. Here's the cards I have in the suit. But some of these kids who were trying to imitate were walking around with these cases and then literally just bothering random people and being like, hey, do you want to see my cards? Like, they're just randomly bothering people. It's like, if some of these promoters get annoyed and say, like, there's guys that pay for these tables, do your dealing elsewhere in the other room or get out.
Yeah.
There's going to be a little friction there. And that would be really annoying. It would be like the hobby equivalent of panhandling. Leave me alone. No, I'm not interested in the cards in your case. Thank you. Good evening, Paul. So Aussie Card Dad, good evening. We have a large hobby show here in Australia next month. Very cool. My brother and I are going to should be going, so it should be good to see some large shows are happening here. Long overdue. No, that's great. And Australia is well situated to be able to do it. So I think I think they're fine. I think you guys will be fine.
Yeah.
You're already well isolated being an island continent country. So I think you're good. So actually, I think this one comes here. Okay, here we go. I want to talk about why I've been watching women's curling for an hour and I can't stop. I don't know what to tell you. I could never get into curling, but Jeff's point here is correct. Curling is a relatively big thing in Canada. Yes. And it is regularly shown on ESPN. Also true. So the people that like it a lot. I just never gotten into it.
I stopped watching it when they got rid of the brooms. Enough said. Now they use those rubbing.
Isn't it like a glorified sponge at the end of it, like a hard sponge?
It's a Swifter.
But it is. But it basically is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wrong. I'm just throwing it out there.
That broom action, it was just like, yeah.
Yeah, that totally did it for you.
They had a pump on your arm. I was like,
amazing, just amazing. All right, so before the Zamboni, okay, so before the Zamboni card and the Bill Barilko card, okay, this is what we're going with. I think talking about the 91, 92 Pro Set is like, this is what we're going with. Sure, why not? All right, Sasha T has an entourage of lackeys. Yeah, I'm not gonna pin it all on Sasha T though, because I don't think he controls the imitators.
No.
The problem is they see the visual of walking around with the case, but they don't understand, like, just annoying people with your case and cards isn't going to work. Like, that's not actually a viable business strategy. You might get a couple of sales because some people take pity on you, but realistically, most people are going to be like, please leave me alone. Please go away.
Everybody wants to be a YouTube star with 1 million hits. So,
yeah. The problem is if you and a lot of people are doing it, you're not very unique and you're not very special. You're not very novel. No. It goes back to another guy who gets mimicked a lot. Gary Vee, when he started doing his things. One thing that happened is they would show the videos and they would show him doing a speech or something, and there would be a kid in the audience who would take the question time and basically ask Gary Vee for a job. And there was a period of time where he would be like, sure, reach out to blah, 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 and then we'll set it up. And he actually would hire some of these kids. But then what happened is after a while, every time they would do a speech, somebody would try the same thing. And I promised you, after a while, they said no. Not because he goes, like, the first couple of people that did it were being original. Nobody had done it up until that point. And he goes, all right, I like your initiative. Why not? We'll give you a shot. But then after a while, I was like, well, now you guys are just mimicking what you already saw.
Yes.
It works a couple of times and then it stops working once now it's not novel anymore. Now it's just like, you just watched this other video and now you're just ripping somebody else off.
It's ungenuine. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, that isn't spontaneous. You didn't think of that. Oh, wait, this is my opportunity. Let me take a stab at this. And then you get credit for being bold, as opposed to you already saw it in a video 5 times and now you're going to try to be the 6th person to do it.
I can see them getting ready and going, oh, I'm going to go to the Gary Vee and I'm going to get my job. Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with the cases, though. Like, just because you see somebody else do it, maybe they've already established a certain amount of credibility. And maybe when Sasha T goes there, maybe some of those dealers already know who he is. So he's not just some random dude walking out of the blue. He's like, and also they might already know the kind of inventory he has. So they might already know, it's like, actually, you usually pick up stuff that I might be interested in. Yeah, sure. Show me what you have. So, like, you're going to get more credit if you have some reputation, as opposed to just some random kid who I don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
So there you go. Mike Canadian Card says, Yoga Pants is like, Mike, I don't think you need to watch curling for that.
True enough.
We have a thing called the internet, Mike. I don't know if you know that. It's like you literally don't need to watch curling for that.
So.
Yeah, hashtag invest in women's curling. Yeah, that's right. I always laugh whenever somebody will do something like that, or they'll watch like a movie or something. It's like, you know, you have the internet, right? Like, yeah. you can skip straight to what you're there for on the internet, allegedly.
And then
just throwing it out there. You can skip ahead to the point of this entire exercise on the internet, allegedly.
Yes.
Okay, so thoughts on the NFT Topps Trevor Lawrence versus Panini Trevor Lawrence NFT? I don't think, does Topps have the ability to do that on the license?
Oh, I wonder.
No, because I feel like I guess because it's an individual player, I guess he could sign. I guess as long as you don't do anything with
logos,
the team or the logos, he might be. Maybe Trevor Lawrence could sign a personal deal to do something with them, I suppose. But I would think anything that, like, Panini at least has the rights to make football cards. So if it's based on a football card design, they could do it. By the way, I haven't heard if there is an NFT or not. I'm assuming based on this comment, maybe there is. I haven't looked into it. But I would be shocked if Topps could do it, I guess, without it being Trevor Lawrence specific. Because I know that Leaf did a thing with Trevor Lawrence for using the Pro Set license to make the Pro Set card with Trevor Lawrence. But that's a deal specifically with Trevor Lawrence. So they can do that as an unlicensed, but a deal directly with the player. So you can do that.
So I wonder if the contracts have to stay open now, or it has to be written in, because we're very specific here with the NFTs, right? So,
but the thing is, you don't have to ask the NFL permission if you're Trevor Lawrence to do something that's only Trevor Lawrence. Like if it's specifically for me, the NFT, and I'm in the NFL or whatever, then yeah, sure.
Card companies, I'm just saying, is it an infringement? Is it like, what are they using here? So I guess that's the difference.
Yeah, I think as long as it's the person directly, then sure. But as soon as you incorporate any licensing, any logos, anything like that, you'd have to have a deal with the league. Sure. And the great curiosity for me is if NFTs will become a separate licensing thing, like a separate licensing category. Yeah. Because it's not a card. So it's like it's something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. So Hockey 99. I want to see someone come with Carlos and Carson Sasha T. Shao. Yeah. It would be interesting. It'd be like, I almost feel bad. I guess it would also depend on the age of the person, because it tends to be these kids. Now, if it's like a teenager, it's like, all right, I'm going to mock you now. It's like I'm moral bound to mock you mercilessly. Yeah, so much of the hobby had the sheep mentality. Yes, in fairness, though, the sheep mentality is not new. We just see it more. I would argue that we see it more because of social media and people reporting it and stuff like that. I promise you, there's always been a little bit of sheepish mentality.
Jesus, even.
So top sold Trevor NFTs this week for 220,000 to 222,000. Okay, fair enough. If Panini has one on auction, I get it. I believe it. I like this comment from Mike here. We don't need to know what you do in your free time. You're the one who brought up the yoga pants, Mike.
True enough.
It's like, I believe, sir, thou doth protest too much. And also the internet. Please.
Yes. An instigator is an official rule.
Indeed. So it's like, I appreciate his attempt to backpedal that. Good luck. Good try, sir. Let's see that search history then. Let's see if this is what you claim is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, thou doth protest too much. All right. Did you miss the Trevor Lawrence top scorer NFT deal? Yeah. I definitely did because I have no idea. I wasn't shocked. Like I wouldn't have been shocked if that is the case. That is the case. But I hadn't heard of it.
Hmm.
I feel like there's so many NFT products now, though. Like I don't know. Like I genuinely don't know.
I have no freaking time.
Yeah, like
NFT.
the thing is, there's so many though. Like in all honesty, even if you are interested, like there are so many avenues you can take with the NFT thing. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be sports. It doesn't have to be, and also something that doesn't have a utility to it. Like I saw an NFT that is like this horse that is associated to this horse racing game, but it's literally associated to a game. Like getting the token allows you to participate in part of the game. So there's there's a gamification element to it. So it's like,
I like
okay,
that.
so you get the token, but then you can utilize the token as part of this game.
I like that.
That at least makes sense to me. Like I feel like you're at least getting something out of it. And then musicians and artists that have an NFT token, where say if you have this NFT token, you get some VIP perks at my concert when we start doing concerts again. So if you're a holder of this, you're going to have a code, and that code will allow you access to blah blah blah. Maybe a special prize pack or a VIP thing or whatever. Okay, there's a tangible value. Having this NFT token actually has some value.
It's not just an investment. It's an investment with benefits. Friends with benefits.
It's something, anything.
And yoga pants.
Yeah. Maybe that's the next NFT. It'll make Mike excited. It'll make Mike excited.
That's right. Yeah.
It'll get him excited. Don't get him too excited. You know, he's not a spring chicken over there. Like we can't get his heart rate up too fast. So Bobby is no sheep. He's been zagging cars from the 60s for the last 60 years.
Not quite that old yet.
Well, if it's a card from the 60s, it would be 60 years just mathematically the cards. So either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
60s, yes.
Yeah, the math does that. The math does check out. Mike, I don't think you understand. It's your search history. I can't bring it. Do you want me to hack into your computer? That's the only way this is working. It's like, I can't help you there, sir. I can't bring your search history up on my screen. And if I can, then you should be more worried.
That was kind of funny. You hit your microphone there. It was like hitting that low note on the piano. It was like, dum. It was perfectly timed. You have to go back and play that and understand that. It was just, anyways.
Yep.
One of those.
I'll deal with it, Mike. Almost everything is over your head. He tries too hard. Anyway, no, that's good. So, but yeah, at least now we learned there's an NFT thing going on with Trevor Lawrence. Two different ones apparently. So I guess the licensing thing isn't an issue. So good for them though. If they got 222,000 for it, that's good for them. Yeah, Sanderson Door, Scotland 10, USA 6. Now have withdrawals. Need more women's curling. Nice. Maybe they should have cards.
Yeah.
At this point, why not? Makes sense to me. I can collect the yoga pants card. He'll get him excited. Okay, so let's take a look here.
Maybe.
So I've got your auction thing here. Let's pull this up. So I will zoom in a little bit because those are pretty small, I think, on the screen there, but I can make them a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I saw a lot. Like
there's a lot.
The 75 Topps baseball mini wax boxes.
You can see the final prices are all there too.
It feels like it's the same bidder though, because the winning bid was the same over and over and over again. 4,100, 4,100.
Now, let me preempt you here, is that this was overlooked by most. So there's only a few pieces that really went for their I guess their value. But I think everybody missed the boat on these. So the people who were bidding, they bid up to that certain point. And my
question is, with this auction house, do they show any information on the winning bidder or no?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
No.
I'd be curious though, given that it is the same dollar amount over and over again, if it was the same buyer.
Oh, more than likely, yeah.
Yeah, because
the increments went up to a certain point, and I think people had that.
You don't have the name, but you do have like that first and last letter thing.
I don't know if it. Oh yeah, okay, it doubles down there on the second.
That. Okay,
so
hold on.
Auto bid. So it was a pre.
Yeah, these were the last couple of bids that were automatic leading up to the total, similar to what eBay does.
Okay, let me give you the details here. It was a 2-day auction. Saturday and Sunday. Saturday they had server problems, so they had to lump a lot of it into the Sunday. So I think there was a lot of chaos going on.
So these two that I just randomly clicked on are both the same high bidder.
Yeah, so those guys put in auto bids because there's so much here. They probably were just, okay, I'll put an auto bid in here. This max I'll pay on this, the max I'll pay on this. Because we're talking, how many boxes of 75 are there?
A whole stack of them, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the whole auction's like this, of stacks of And that's just 75. Wait till you see some of the other crazy stuff. This is mind blowing.
Okay, so at least the first 3 of them are the same high bidder.
Yeah.
All the ones at 4,100. Okay, cool. 74 tops. Let me scroll through quickly. 76 tops. One thing that I would add here. This is an 84 tops baseball sealed vending case. Vending is tough. If you're thinking about that for grading, vending is tough. It could be feast or famine with that.
Yeah.
77 tops baseball. Oh man, $3,000. 77 tops baseball.
But they all went for different prices too. One went. Oh no, that one's pretty consistent. Yeah.
I think I could be mistaken. I think I remember the 77 tops baseball being on Baseball Card Exchange, and I swear it had to be like $500 or $600, maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
Like if not less.
Everything went for far less than what it should have went for.
82 top Celio packs. Okay. Well, the 82 top Celio packs, 575. That's not 82 tops though. I'm trying to think.
There's nobody in there.
Yeah. No, well, actually, 82 tops. I'm trying to think if I feel Ripken is a high number, or at least he's on that Future Stars card with the other 2 guys, because there's the tops traded Ripken.
This wouldn't be the traded though.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I think Ripken is in it with the other 2 players, like on a 3-player Future Stars card.
You think the cells came out later? Oh, that's one thing interesting.
I think it's 82 top. Yeah, I'll take a look at it, but let me scan first here real quick. 87 Flair. There you go. Unopened rack box, $105. That's not bad. That's not terrible.
It was empty, I think.
It says unopened rack.
Oh, 87 Fleer. That's why. Okay.
Yeah.
But even still, that's still too cheap.
It is because, like, regardless of what people think about them, you can get bonds out of that.
Yeah.
87 Fleer. So you can, in a PSA 10, that bonds card would still be worth more than $105.
Yeah.
So you're getting 24 racks, it looks like. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I feel like that's actually a pretty good price. It's not bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's lots of great deals. Wait till you see some of them. It's like, oh my gosh.
1981 Fleer, $230. Okay, cool. There's a lot here. Yeah. Oh man, 86 tops baseball for the unopened 3-box rack case. Lovely. Lovely. Yeah, 86 tops it's a fun set. There's no doubt. All right.
Yeah.
I'll scan through a little bit of this in a bit and we'll come back to it, but I'll leave the tab open for now. That's cool though. That's very cool. So let me scan through here quickly just to keep up with everybody. It says NFT of the flavor of the year, Cinnamon Neon Colors. I think what's going to be cool though is I think, and this is just this is my prediction. I think we're going to get, still big influx of more NFTs for a little bit because that's what has to happen. The market will get saturated. And then I think the ones that hold interest will be the ones that maybe can be linked to something. That's why I say like the one with the horse racing thing. That might not be interesting to you, but at least it's associated to a game. So as long as people are interested in the game, the tokens then hold some value as part of the game.
Otherwise, it's just a token, and it's so the tokens will lose out against other ones that have benefits.
Yeah, because what happens is in the game, like it's supposed to simulate like horse breeding. So basically, you can get like a horse and then race the horse, but then you can also then convert it into another token and basically make more horses.
Oh.
So it's like this whole thing, like you get to pretend that you're owner of a stable and like do all this stuff. So it's a game. So the token is like your inroads into the game.
Oh.
So people bid up because if you get like a premium horse, in turn, you can get more tokens that maybe are premium horses as well that then hold value. So it's a little bit of luck of the draw, a little bit with the racing element. Like there's different components to it. Again, might not be everybody's cup of tea, but at least it's associated with something. You get to use the token for a purpose of some kind, even if it's just for the game.
True.
So anything that has anything associated to it, that there's some kind of an attachment, I think will hold a little bit better. Or if maybe it is a piece of art, like a piece of art, maybe of an artist that somebody actually likes. So that could be a thing. Yeah. So here, Sports Collectibles NFT here puts it in. Use the horse to actually earn more tokens, which convert to crypto. There you go. Exactly.
Oh, convert to crypto. Yeah. Gotcha. Smart.
I didn't catch that one on the bench clear. I caught that one on. There's a podcast called Wrecked Podcast. They talk about different cryptocurrencies and things. So I do try to listen and keep my ears open. And they were interviewing one of the guys that I think is in charge of it, or at least directly associated to it. It was giving them an explanation to it. So I was able to hear some of it. You'll hear about stuff like that in different places, though. If you keep your eyes and ears open, if you keep an open mind, I think it's interesting. You don't have to participate, though. I separate keeping an open mind and listening and understanding and learning from participating. You don't have to participate. Doesn't matter.
Like me with new cards.
Exactly. So here, I still love neon colors. I would compare NFTs to Zubaz pants. Sure. Yeah, so here, the Mint on Bench Clear is a great NFT crypto. The Mint is actually hosted by the same guys. So I do know the one you're talking about. It is hosted by the same guys that do the Rec podcast. So it is the same idea. Yeah, top 5 cards, hot crypto every day. Yes, that is true. Crypto goes through quick cycles that way. Certain one becomes the new hotness, and then it moves on to the other one. So let me grab this, actually. I didn't want to completely lose sight of it because we were having some fun with it a little bit earlier. Let me see if I can pull this up. So like I said, guys, the NFT thing is fun, but there's only so many directions we're going to because I don't have an expertise in it. I do have some understanding, but I am limited in the sense of I don't dig into it that deeply, but I am watching it peripherally. My interest is at least extends that far. But as far as the rest of it is, oh my God, it's the worst. Okay, it's actually the worst one. Okay. I thought it was actually with a different year. Maybe I'm thinking 92, 93. Okay, so let me do this. I will open this one up here. When I was listening to what they said about which one it was, I was actually thrown off by it. I didn't realize that it was not the one I was thinking of. So 91, 92 is, let me see if I can open this up. Share screen. Let's do this window. 91, 92 apparently is this one. So I forgot that is true because the Medano rookie year is the year before. This is 91, 92. It's like, it's a full bleed photo, but it's uninspired for me.
Clark has that weird smile. I don't know.
Look, the full bleed photo thing is cool and all. And the fact that it has picture on both sides is cool. But otherwise, it's Pro Set and it sucks.
Yeah, Pro Set's there with their name too big on it.
Like it's in the corner.
Doesn't matter. It's just huge. Yeah.
Like
it's bigger than Leaf logo.
Like I said, outside of the full bleed photo, I am just not with it. And this is my era. This is when I started collecting. This was the product that was out there. It's like I didn't care for it back then either. Was not great. At least 1990, 91 was super colorful with the borders and stuff. It might have been too much, to be honest, but I will say it was colorful. The full bleed photos and the pictures on both sides, but the first year also had the pictures on both sides. So
yeah,
it's not like it was novel for them. It's just kind of there. It's meh. If you're into it, you're into it though. Like I'm not going to knock you for that, but I don't know, man. 91, 92, I think had 92, 93, sorry. I think that's the one with the gray border, if memory serves me. Not great either, but I thought it was a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it's weird how they went from really nice cards and then the late 80s, especially 89, 90 with the blue borders and it was so 80s-ish. And then the 90s came in. It's like they were trying things that were different, but never really hit until a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Mid-90s, that's when things really started to change.
Well, I think though you go through artistic cycles because there's one thing that has been said before that is true. There's only so much you can do on a 3.5 by 2.5 card. Like there are limits. You can come up with technologies, you can come up with different ideas, but okay, so let's say you go with a border. What are you going to put inside the border? What do you need? Player's name, his team, maybe a logo, maybe the company's logo. Okay. You want to put it at the top, the bottom, the corner, the middle? Like, where do you want to throw it? There's only so much you can do. And then after a while, you have to go like, okay, so we introduce some technology. Okay, we'll use foil, we'll use etching, we'll use this, we'll do a refractor, we'll do chrome. And after you've run through those different cycles, then you're like, okay, what else you got? Do you want to reprint the ones we already did? Good thinking.
Let's do the 1910s. Yeah, let's go up to the 30s. Let's go through the 30s and do the Worldwide Gum, Canadian Chewing Gum. They've done it all. So they're really, I don't know what they're going to run into in another 10 years from now. It'll be very interesting to see.
They'll keep adjusting. They'll keep adjusting the border width, the direction of the colors, the direction of the, there's only so much you can do. That's why I say, like, as a canvas, inside of the boundaries of that canvas, there's only so much you can do. Sure. So I'm not going to knock them for getting creatively bankrupt because it's like, well, what do you want to do that we haven't already done 15 times? I don't have an issue with that, but it is what it is. Fortunately, most people who are in the hobby now or started recently haven't seen everything already. But if you've been in it long enough where you saw what came before, and then maybe you had a long lifespan as a contemporary collector seeing these years as they go by, then for you, it's like, oh, this looks like 91 score. This looks like 92 upper deck. This looks like 94 stadium club or whatever. It gets very difficult. It's not impossible, but it gets difficult.
I found it interesting. I think it was Jeremy opening up one of those packs. I forget what he had there. It was a card inside a card. So you open the perforation, and there was another card inside there. It was somewhat very much collectible. I thought that was a very interesting way of doing it. So you have the card, and plus you have that little insert card, which is kind of cool. Something different, but I mean, it's like a surprise and a surprise. When you open a pack, you get that card, then you open that card, and there's a rare card, maybe an autograph. I don't know. I have no idea, but that's kind of creative. I like that part of it because all the other ones are just lower numbered. It's out of this, out of that, and that kind of gets boring to me because that's manufactured scarcity to that degree. And let's make it green, let's make it ruby, let's make it this. It's it's old. It has to change. It has to go somewhere to maybe entice the new people, or maybe people will enjoy the 50 sets a year that they're doing.
Well, from a manufacturer standpoint, they'll produce 50 sets as long as they can sell 50 sets. And right now the answer is yes, they can.
Yeah.
Because even as they sell 50 sets, they sell out of the stuff they have. They're able to move the stuff they have, and people get in line to wait for the stuff they have.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'll take a couple of minutes and I'll talk about one of those aspects of it, because it's not a news story and it's also not shocking, but it is, I think, relevant a little bit. So I'll touch on Jeff's comment here. Competition in the 90s and 2000s did drive a lot of innovation, though. Yes, very true. But what happened, though, is a lot of that innovation also did come in the realm of technology. That was one part of it, which I mentioned. The second part of it, though, I will say also, yes, they did have some really great designs because they hired real artists to come up with the ideas. So if you're hiring someone who is a graphics artist or somebody who understands design that way, that's not a bad person to ask about creating something. You give them the parameters and say, inside of this space, we're going to put a picture of this player somewhere. How do you want to do this to make it interesting? Make it visually appealing, whatever you're going to do. And that's where they came up with a lot of those different ideas. And I think it worked really well. But eventually what's going to happen, though, is if you do enough different technologies and you do enough different types of designs and you go, it's basically what happened with, what I want to say happened with Pacific in hockey. The first couple of years, they came up with a ton of innovative stuff. And they were still coming up with some good ideas after. But even within a couple of years, they had literally used almost every idea. Like they threw everything at the wall to see what would stick. And you came up with so many ideas that then you started almost having to redo the same idea, but the second version or third version was worse than the first version because it's like, well, you had already used the best idea. Carvin did this conversation when he was talking about design. He had certain ideas for certain ways of doing things that he intentionally held back because it goes, if we're going to do this for second or third year, we need something. So don't throw everything at it and then we run out of gas.
Yeah.
And but that's basically what happened with Pacific. Now Pacific kept going, but it's like their ideas got less clever as it went on because it's like, well, you already did that. Oh, we can do the net fusions. You mean the thing you did 2 years ago and last year? Kramer's we've done that literally every single year. What about you've done that too? The acetate, the die cut, you did that and you did that and you did that and you did that. If you do all of them in the same year in your product line, all the different ideas, you run out of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets increased. It's not impossible, but it gets trickier if you throw everything at it. Topps was able to coast for a very long time. Now they got less creative as time went on too, but they only had to create one brand a year for a very long time during the monopoly.
Yeah.
Now that's not necessarily a good thing, but at least it allowed them to buy more time before they got, bored of their own designs.
Pushed to the creative genius that they lacked as time went on. So yes.
Yeah, so 86 Fleer is an ugly set. Why did they use McDonald colors? Fleer thought it was a good idea. And it was the first set in a couple of years because you had the star cards, which were distributed in that wacky way. But they were the first pack with cards since the early 80s with Topps. So it's like... And also, I don't think they knew how well it would sell, and it didn't sell that great at the beginning either. So it's like...
The Fleer?
The 86 Fleer, yeah, didn't do that great at the beginning. Later on, obviously, people appreciated it more once Jordan became great. And then you looked at the checklist was full of Hall of Famers and great players because they hadn't had cards in years.
Yes.
So for some of these players, it had been years since they'd had a card. So it was like maybe this was the late career card of this person or this person. And then you had Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, John Stockton, all these great players, including Jordan and all these other guys. Like tons.
Yeah.
Bobby should write a sports card trivia book. My goodness.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
It might be. There's a lot of trivia that could be thrown out. There's a lot of little quirks and interesting little things that could be in there.
Yeah, the only trivia I know is the weird, unusual stuff that nobody really knows.
Maybe it would be an excuse to kind of, and for more information, refer back to this other.
Refer back to me. There you go. And it's those quirky little things that I know about OPG, the companies, and other things that happen that are, it's really kind of unique, and that's why I share them. I will be sharing them in the website coming up. So,
yep, no, that's fair.
We're trudging along with that still. Working on the just finished. The article I wrote that got out there for the New York peanut butter hockey tumblers, hockey drinking glasses. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting. But a little lead in and then a little bit more research and put it all together and got it out there. Now, generally, I would save that for my website because the website will have a write-up. What I had to do is contrive that article and contrive it into a small couple paragraphs. Very difficult to do because there's so much to explain. So I will be adding articles in the write-ups as well. So there'll be the write-up separate, and then if you want to read the article on the tumblers, it'll be also in there. Or any other article that I've written will be beside each product that you look into. So that'll just be fortify the set with more detailed information, especially when it needs more explanation. Mm-hmm. So that's what's going to happen. So that'll be somewhat interesting, more interesting.
I think that's fair. I think it sounds good, and it's nice to see the process in action though, because we got to see some of those tumblers, and then you built off of that, built the article, and now like it's continued on, and then obviously it'll come back around to when the website's ready. So you know, it's all part of the process, and there's so much stuff like that, little quirky things, but that's what makes it fun.
But this is staring us in front of our face for the last, what I'd say 20 years. Let's just say 20 years. I should say 25, 30, but let's just go with the last 20 years. It's just we never look into things. Sometimes we just assume. And I'm guilty of it too.
Yep.
But I finally had the epiphany and I just went, wow, I wonder. No, really? Hey. And then a little research and there you go.
But part of it is that somebody has to be interested enough to try. Like that's usually the way it works, is that you have to actually try it. And then from there, things proceed and go along. But that's kind of the way that works.
It's funny. I was going through Sports Collectors Daily. There were articles, the hockey articles, and then I see one on the what was it? The Crescent Selkirks from 1923 and 24. Western Coast League. And this gentleman from Beckett wrote the article, and he has the years reversed. They have the wrong cards in the wrong year: 24, 25, 25, 23, 4, 24, 5. And the card should be reversed, but the order's right in the lists and what have you. And then I looked on Beckett's website and they still have the wrong years for the wrong players. And I'm sitting here going, this came out in my 2006 book, the right years. And you know what it took? It took a 1-minute search, and I looked up the team list on a newspaper website, and it showed me the team that was playing and all those players that match up to there, but they're not on the next year, only a couple. So we know it's that the year is right. Mm-hmm. So what takes 1 minute takes Beckett for decades.
Well, the thing though is it goes back to what I said though. There has to be an interest. Like it doesn't matter how easy or hard something is. Sometimes something's very easy, but then they're like, "Oh, why didn't anybody do this?" Because nobody cared enough. Like there had to be an impetus to be like, you know what? I want to figure this out. Hold on, let me figure this out. Oh, it turns out it's actually right in front of me.
So every PSA, every SGC, every Beckett is wrong on their dates on those cards, and it's just a shame.
Right?
Is anyone going to change that? No. So I have to write another article, put it out there publicly, and then contact PSA and say, hey, you guys better change your cards. You mean people got to send them in again? And and people won't want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
So, and that hurts the hobby. That's what pisses me off about the hobby in general. It's just like you take false information. It's been clarified 15 years ago, and nobody cares to change that information. Actually, I think they push it away. It's like, we don't want to admit we were wrong, so why don't we just not worry about it right now? And then you got Bobby Burrell on Carlos, and then he's posting on Sports Collectors Daily, and I'm going to push these guys right to their limit. Let's get facts, and let's get things straight. That's all I want. I just want a fair shot at telling you guys what it is that you guys are the experts, you're not, and you need to fix things. There you go. Much said.
Nice. That's fair. So let me quickly catch up on a couple of these here. So Ozzy Cardell says a lot of the modern basketball releases have tribute sets and cards. Very true. Chronicles a rehash of sets that are no longer produced. Yes. And the Panini also does Chronicles for baseball, where they use a lot of different sets to try to squeeze it in. It's also kind of a cheap way of creating multiple rookies in the same series because they're all base cards technically. So here, name is all popped in. Sorry, it took me a couple of minutes, name, but I want to get caught up on a couple of these comments. So good evening as well. Happy Friday. I think some of the companies improved some of the innovations brought forward by Pacific. That is very true. Very true. But that's good. You should iterate, like build off of what's been done. And if you can do a better version of it or come up with a cool idea to take it to another level, do it. Do that.
See, the best part is like Young Guns. Like they can still do Young Guns. They just have to change the design, but it's a branded product that you don't have to change much, which is really good for them.
Yeah. And it is good. So there's a balance, right? You want to come up with new ideas because it keeps things interesting. It keeps things vibrant in the marketplace. But you do also want to have certain staples that are like consistent. Young Guns, it's in the Upper Deck base set. It's 1 in 4 packs approximately, usually most years. It's about 50 cards. They're not short printed in the traditional sense of short printed, but they're more short printed than a regular base card. And there's 50 of them in each series, and that means there's 100 total. So to get a specific player is actually kind of tricky, but to get a Young Guns card in general, not very difficult at all. And they produce plenty, but they're still popular and people like them. But making it 1 in 4 packs means you still got a reasonable shot of finishing a set if that's your desire.
Yeah, exactly. You said stable, so I thought we were back at the NFT horse racing.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to have that. The thing is, Freudian slip or not, it's actually accurate because stability is part of that.
True enough,
stability is part of it because if you don't have that, and every single year, that was one of my critiques of the early Black Diamond. When Upper Deck did Black Diamond, they changed the set design the first 3 years. They did it one way in year 1, completely changed it in year 2, and completely changed it again in year 3. And I was like, so then if you're a collector, you like the year 1, you got thrown out. You like the year 2, you got thrown out. And then you like the year 3, it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to change it again. And now it's a 1-pack product that's just memorabilia. It's like, it has nothing to do with the original Black Diamond. So it's like, there's been no consistency. So even if you were a fan of Black Diamond in the early years, it's like there's nothing left of the original Black Diamond other than the name. It's not the same product. Now, if Upper Deck says, well, the product didn't sell well enough, well, it must have sold well enough for you to keep making it the first couple of years, but you also kept changing it. So there was never a chance to build any consistency with it. You have to hold it. You have to hold through at least 1 or 2 more years. And then if you want to change it, then start making modifications, but not every single year. The first 3 years, they made 3 different set designs. So they kept doing it over and over again. So anyway.
It's hard to match.
So PMG started off ugly and not a big deal. Continuity helped as well as technology and creativity. Very true. Hockey here says, with Jaromir Jagr announcing he'll continue to play for Kladno, that's his team in the Czech Republic, I believe. Will his cards see a bump? No. Now, if his cards do see a bump, it'll be a general bump as 90s guys are getting a bump. It won't be specifically because he keeps playing because most people don't know that. Now, I know what you're talking about because I read an article on NHL.com and I pulled it up, but I wanted to grab a clip from this and you can check out on NHL.com. The article is specifically called Jagr not planning to retire following 33rd pro season. So including NHL, KHL, playing at home and all that, but as a professional. But specifically, now he owns a team, I believe, in the Czech Republic, and his team has now been elevated to the top tier of the Czech Professional League, and I think they won the championship this year. So he was part of the team, but he's a ticket draw for that team to help them, do well.
Sure.
So here he says, he was talking about the main reason I am still playing is my responsibility to the club. If I did not have any, I would not be flying around the ice here because I am embarrassing myself there, I can say. Now, if it was a game of shinny or it was like an old timers game, Jagr would be fine. but he's trying to play professional hockey. Now, the Czech league is not at the same level as like the NHL or whatever.
I think he'd be fine playing in that league.
I think he's fine, but he is having a little bit of like he got 12 points in 19 regular season games in that league. So like it's not like he's lighting the lamp over there either. And now it's not that he couldn't find a way to play. Like, Gordie Howe played forever. So is it possible? Sure, but it's one of those things. But literally, these are the quotes that make me question what it's going to take for him to keep doing it. It's like, I cannot quit. We have an outdoor game sold out. If that's the reason you're not quitting, I think you're kind of like, I would otherwise.
Yeah, but it is Czech Republic, so you have to understand that that's a large draw for them.
No,
and they want to keep the popularity there.
I 100% understand. And given that he is the owner of the team, he has a great incentive to keep
vested
doing it.
interest.
The point is, if he left him to his own devices, though, would he retire? And the answer, and his own, these are quotes from him. So the answer seems to be yes. He probably would retire or just play for fun somewhere, doing it just for kicks, not trying to play professionally at this point.
Yeah, I don't think you ever give up hockey when you're a hockey superstar. I think you always kind of want to keep playing a little bit.
Sure, but I don't think he unless there isn't reason for him, like owning the team and helping to promote them and building them up. I don't think he needs to play pro hockey. I think he could just play in these different opportunities. He would get plenty of opportunities to play if he just wants to play and have some fun. He could totally do that, and it would be no problem, and they'd be happy to have him.
Special interest games, what have you. Yeah, for sure. I think that's what most of those guys really want.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
So it's one of those things. So to answer the question, if it's a bump, it'll be a general 90s, getting some appreciation right now. A lot of these 90s guys are getting a bump in general. So it could be swept up as part of that. That's what happened with the rookie, and it could very well be, yes. But I don't think him continuing to play or not play. I think there's a large chunk of the population where if you told him he was still playing, they'd be like, really? Where?
I think there would be a bump, but the bump you wouldn't see. It'd be so marginal, you would just kind of... But I think that it would help a little bit because you know how people are jumping on things now. It's just like, oh, he's playing. Oh, maybe I better...
Yeah, but I just don't know if goals that he's scoring in the Czech Republic are really going to have much of an impact on hobby love. It's like, oh man, you guys, you should have seen him score that goal, in the Czech league. It's like, can I see a highlight of that? Like, is that on TV? Like, can I even find it? It's like, I believe you, but if you hadn't told me I wasn't shocked to see that he was still playing, and that he was playing in the Czech Republic. Also not shocking to me, but I wouldn't have known how many points or goals he had until I read an article that told me how many goals and points he had.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Now you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we know.
Yep. And that's if you do digging into it, goes back to what you said earlier. It didn't take me long. It was on the front page of NHL.com. It was in the little side panel. It was right there.
And
it was
has it went viral?
I and read it. What's that?
Has it went viral yet?
No, not as far as I know. I don't think it, kind of going back to the question though, it's like, does anyone really care?
Not now.
Like if you're a fan, you're probably like, oh, I'm happy he's still playing. If he's having some fun, great. But like I said, it seems to me like he feels an obligation to play for this team to help him out. But that doesn't excite me one way or the other. Hopefully he plays as long as he feels like it. So hopefully there.
I'd like to see more peanut butter out of him.
Yeah, exactly. So name here says, has Hobby ever done a tour of his room there? Well, there was that clip that you had. Yeah. Was it in that video or is there anywhere else?
No, it was just that video. It was when we did the 55 Quake Roads or Parkhurst. I think it was in the same video at the later end of it.
Yeah, so let me help out with this one just for anybody who didn't catch it the first time. I will pull it up here. I'm not going to play the video right now, but I'll direct you to it just so you have it. So here, this should be the right one. I will show you guys real quick, just in case you didn't know. If you already know, don't worry about it. It'll just take a second. So on YouTube itself, if you look at Bobby Burrell right there, just like that.
Oh, I think he was talking about the one I did on your show, Carlos.
Was it the one? Oh, so you're talking about the one where you did we showed the pictures?
Yes.
Okay, so we did have that, but I think they showed some clips here. Well, this is like a highlight film, but I think like I can definitely see in that clip there.
There's wasn't so much of a there's a background, for sure.
Was there ever a video kind of tour of your room?
No, I've never really done that. No.
Okay, so then yes,
the picture clip from yours.
There's the episode where we did the slideshow where you showed the pictures from the room. And there is that if you're interested in just a general highlight of some of Bobby's stuff, then that little clip there, it's about 4 minutes long. It's not very long. You guys can check it out. But yeah, maybe at some point it'd be worthwhile doing a video one then, just like a quick video room tour, a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that could be something maybe for the future. So the answer is technically no, but you can definitely have seen clips of it in some places.
True.
So I think that's fair. So thanks for bringing it up, Name. I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought it was part of those ones. So here, Aussie Card Dad says, 87 Fleer has a lower print run due to 86 Fleer not selling at the time. Very true. Subsequent years production increased due to Jordan's rise in popularity. Yep. So 86 Fleer kind of brought basketball cards back into it. So in that way, it's significant. It's a good set in the sense that it brought back consistent basketball cards going forward. Because up until that point, there was that little mini gap there in the 80s. Like I said, around the same time that the NBA was on tape delay and things like that, where they were having their struggles. And obviously, it's a very popular sport today, comparatively. So, Nate was rooting you on during your rant against PSA and inaccuracy. So he says, let him have it. Yeah. So Sanderson Dora says, Bobby, the reason I bought your books and come here is because you care. Beckett as a business doesn't care about such things. It's about the bottom line, not accuracy. One other thing also that I'll interject here as well. Let's bear in mind, though, when we're talking about Beckett, the guy is divorced from the company. The guy is divorced from the company at this point, though. He sold the company to somebody who has also sold the company. So it's like in its third owner now. So like, even if you had dealings with Beckett 15 or 20 years ago, that's different than the people that are dealing with it 10 years ago than the people that are dealing with it now. The name stays the same, but the ownership is different.
Yeah.
Like I said, this Beckett is the one that when I go to the Beckett site, I have to close 2 different pop-ups because they won't leave me alone.
Oh, I know.
It's so annoying every single time. And I still get calls occasionally from Beckett to be like, hey, would you be interested? No, I'm not interested. Lose this number. Leave me alone.
Like I said, I was looking for the Crescent Selkirk cards.
Yeah.
And you can't even see a visual until you join up. And then, like you said, a little pop-up comes up. Would you like to? No. Put the blocker on, everything. It's just a horrible site. No details. It's just like there's no... they give you nothing to want to join their website or to pay for it, I guess.
Yeah.
There's no, little bit of a lead in, maybe a little partial write-up of the set, a few pictures of the cards or something. And honestly, most of the card writers out there it's fluff. And, the card is this size, this color, this team's logos at the bottom. It's just boring stuff, honestly, and they write articles for no reasons, most of them, but a few have done some half decent jobs, but most of them out there are just fluff. And I think Beckett's fluff. They're more concerned about the new stuff. Leave them out of the vintage and let them do the new stuff.
I don't think they even do the new stuff particularly well at this point.
I don't know, and I'll just leave it to that.
Well, I do because I had fun making fun of them when they messed up the Gretzky, that big Gretzky sale when they had it, because even on their little graphic, they showed it in a way that looked like it was like $1.27. So it was like, because they didn't put million, and they put it in a bunch of other places. Yeah. So it was, no, the thing is they've done it with other graphics. They've done it with other graphics though, because they're clear. It says clearly right on it. But I at the time on one of the streams, I pulled it up and I go, well, if you were just quickly scanning and just scan quickly and it's like, wait, that's a record? What is that? And then you just look at, now when you click on it and go into the article and stuff, but it actually took them quite a while but they did eventually update the graphic. So some people must have been like, hey guys, it's not as clear as it could be, because some people aren't going to read the article. So some people are just looking at the quick screenshot and scanning by.
They're a little slow. It took them long enough to up their Gretzky price.
Yeah, that's just it. It's just that it's not very helpful. It's not very useful. It's not very user friendly. The site is still super antiquated. And I'm not a fan of the way they do their indexing for the actual checklists. So even if you want to use the checklist, which you can do, it's painful. It's very irritating. It's just not a good experience. It's not a good experience.
Well, it's interesting. The Crescent Selkirks are, there's 2 short printed cards in those sets because it was rewarded for a prize ice cream. You send in a set. And there's Cecil Brown is one of the short prints. We don't know the other short print. Because they have the names reversed when the Cecil Brown came up, it's just a regular one. And it was like, everybody went crazy for it. It was like, oh, that's the number 6 card. Same number is actually the short print in both years. So when you reverse the player or the teams, it becomes the short print, but it really isn't in the second generation. So everybody spent their money on that card. That happened about 8 years ago, something like that. And I just went, oh, if they only knew. And then they're just looking up Beckett, and then they'll go on PSA and they'll look up PSA. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. It's like Wikipedia. It's wrong everywhere. Yeah. Sorry, I just jammed Wikipedia too because they're awful.
Nice.
They are. And everybody believes everything. And you take Wikipedia and then you look up another website, they get the same information. They got the same information. It's just like just crap's spread around everywhere because everybody copies everybody because nobody wants to dig in and take 5 minutes to look up something.
Well, yes. In a nutshell, yes.
Well, yes. Thank you. That's enough.
In a nutshell, yes. Correct. Yeah. So Ozzy Cardad here says, as a non-hockey guy, I'm interested if we know who played the longest professionally. I know Gordie Howe played forever. So real quick, I would make 2 qualifications. One, I would say in terms of sheer number of seasons. Now, when we say professional, don't forget, we got those other professional leagues. The AHL used to be, well, it is a professional league, but it used to be considered, if we go way back in time, the AHL at one point was considered to be like, if the NHL was 1, the AHL was 1A. Like it was still considered to be professional hockey, super high tier. There were some real good players there in that time period because there were players that chose to continue to play in those kind of leagues in those eras. If we go to the back, back in the 40s, the 50s,
well, professional versus amateur, you're talking back in those times, right?
I'm talking when they're professional leagues, but I'm talking about like the NHL was still the top league, but you still had something like the AHL where there were players who would make an entire career playing their entire career in the AHL by choice.
Yeah.
Where maybe they were good enough to play in the NHL, but they're just like, no, I'm happy here. I'm in a town that I'm happy with. I get paid. And the NHL wasn't paying so much more at that time because some guys work second jobs in the NHL. So it wasn't like when the money shifted, then it became obvious if you want to play professionally at the highest tier and get paid a living wage, well, then the NHL, if you can make it, you're there.
The only other league I guess I would officially call would be the WHA. That's the only other league when they melded into the NHL too after that. But I mean,
as a legitimate competitor, the WHA was the one because they paid real dollars. But really pushed the envelope.
Most of those American hockey leagues were actually farm teams for the NHL teams themselves. Yeah. So I can't really call them, and it's a loosely used term, professional versus, you go back to the 10s and 20s, professional versus amateurs, people got paid and people who didn't. There was a big no for that back then. Remember, if you played for the sport and you didn't get paid, it was like, that was like such a wonderful thing to do. Sort of like, yeah, well, I'll take getting paid.
I think the amateurism spirit is fading as we speak.
Yes.
I think it's just about dead, but it's fading for sure. But the reason I posed the question is that I'm still inclined to think Gordie Howe because he also played in the WHA. So he played in the NHL from the 40s,
46
through the early 70s, retired briefly.
2 years and he didn't play 70, 71, 72.
Something like that. So, and then he went to WHA and then played out most of the rest of the 70s. And then the Hartford Whalers went to the NHL and he played one more year in the NHL. So you tack on another year on top of that. So like between the WHA and the NHL, he played forever plus professional. This whole time it's professional. He's getting paid this whole time.
It's almost like 40 years.
It's a long time. It's a really long time. It's ridiculous. And Mike here says, he played in 6 different decades, which is 100% true. But I'll count it because it is, it is, the IHL, International Hockey League. He did play for the Detroit Vipers for a game to qualify for that. But I'm just saying in his original run, though, if we go from the NHL until his brief retirement, it was brief. It was only a short cup of coffee. And then went to play in the WHA there, had a good run in the WHA, and then finished it off with one more year in the NHL just to close things off, to bookend it. That is about as long as it gets. If we're talking just in the NHL world, Patrick Marleau is now the games leader. So he has the most, which just say he played a very long time, which is impressive still. Obviously in the modern day, it's super impressive.
But doesn't have the stats that Howe has. So,
but he was never that
played the longest. It doesn't matter. Who cares about Marleau? And he played the long. Okay, that's a record. But if you're a slub player, who cares?
But the thing is,
you're a great trivia question. Is that
if you're a schlub player though, you don't get to play that long. You would have been retired. They would have retired you. You're out.
There's lots of guys who played for 20 years who never really went anywhere.
I understand, but you have to play well enough to stay in the lineup because they don't need to keep you around. There's no rationale to. You have to at least be able to earn a roster spot.
Do you know how long Dave Ellett stayed on the Leafs defense for? Anyways,
yeah, he didn't get the games ready, Bobby. You have to play enough games to get.
But here's enough guys that are out there that are just steady eddies, and they just keep playing.
But none of them came close to that games record. None of them came close.
Oh, understood.
Yeah, like it's still a very to get to that record, you still have to play a lot of games, a lot of games. And to put it this way, Patrick Marleau's started playing in the I want to say like 97 or thereabouts, and is still playing today. So it's like it's been a good run for him, and most likely it'll end this season or next season, and then but still really good run for him. But I think House takes the cake between playing in the WHA as well. It takes the cake.
And just what he did through the NHL is, Marleau will be long forgotten, whereas Gordie Howe will live on well past most vintage stars from back that time right through.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's how you get to be Mr. Hockey.
There you go. Enough said, Mr. Marleau.
That's right. So here, Hockey says, I would rather watch live games of Yager in the Czech Republic than I would NHL games. Oh, that's fair. So whatever your preference is. So your Beckett is annoying. We'll catch up on the Beckett comments as well here. Beckett is annoying, ridiculous. You have to sign to their website to view their pop reports. That is true. Yes. Because in order to see the pop reports for the thing, and it's so pointless because you don't have to pay for it, but you have to sign in and then find, by the way, it's like 8 clicks. It's an obscene amount of work just to find something as simple as a pop report. And by the way, half the time it's wrong. It's lame.
Yeah, I don't really get what they're doing. PSA does this for free. You can go and log. You don't even have to log in. You get that for free. Now Beckett's having their lesser business, and they're trying to improve their business, and yet you have to sign up to get it, and then stuff's wrong. It's just actually PSA is wrong too on that one too. So
yeah, but I would say that they did. I would say the PSA at least understands that the less friction there is, the more useful it is. I don't think Beckett has updated their site in a very long time. I like, it's one of those things where I don't think they want to invest in it. And it's like, guys, it would really behoove you to improve that site, fix it.
But then they buy a lot of businesses through acquisitions. They've been increasing their business over the last few years. I don't know about the last year or so, but I mean, prior to that, they were acquiring a lot of other smaller businesses, and
I'm not questioning that the company's profitable. I believe it's still profitable, but I'm questioning if they're converting some of that profit into improving the product, and it doesn't seem to be translating, and it's unfortunate. No. Because again, a viable competitor is good. A viable competitor in the space is good. We don't want less competitors because then it keeps people from resting on their laurels, so they don't try. The problem is Beckett is resting on its laurels when it's not number one.
But they're number one, and if you go into a sports card shop, the only thing you can really find is a Beckett. Sadly.
Yeah, but you're not going to buy it.
Well, if you have so a regular guy goes in, he's trying to look up past values. He's going to buy a Beckett.
Sure.
They have no alternative.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't think the print business is holding for them. No. I think the amount of people that are going to do that is dwindling as we speak.
Very much so.
Yes. So PSA is so dominant. It's like they are the WWE before AEW came on the scene. The only part that I would debate you on that is that it would be like if WWE. Let me think. What's the best way to do this? WWE is like Beckett doing that when they're not number one.
Yes.
Because WWE has been putting on a bad product. But they're basically number one by default. But the difference is that Beckett lost that crown and they have not done anything to regain it. PSA is dominant because they're still the best out of bad options. Because the resale value is the king. That's still the thing. It's like, oh, but the long wait times. It's like, oh, I'm not going to use them. No problem. Fair, completely fair. Go to Beckett. Oh, they're slow wait times too. Yeah, I know. CSG, they're starting to slow down and their price is going to start creeping up. Yep. Mm-hmm. SGC, well, they tripled their price as soon as they encountered any resistance. Who else you want to go to? KSA.
There you go.
I bet you could go to KSA. Mint?
For sure, Mint.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like I said, what I said a second ago is still accurate. Competition can be good, but it has to be legit. It has to be good competition. It has to be competition that is viable, competition that is actually bringing something to the table. And they have to be able to execute their business well to be real competition.
Yes.
That's very important. It's not just competition existing. They have to be decent.
Decent competition.
To show you that it's a real competition instead of just physically being there and expecting that, okay, well, we're competition, so buy our stuff. Well, you have to show me your stuff's worthwhile.
That's right.
If it sucks, I'm not interested. I don't care if you're competition.
Then you can't compare. How do you compare?
Yeah.
Apples
So right
to
now, their
apples.
dominant market position has been earned, but the other companies have had opportunities to chip away at it, and they're not doing a very good job.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of wrestling, have you been watching the series that are on, the documentaries? Roddy Piper was just on. It's like an hour and a half. It's on every
Is this
once
A&E?
a week.
Is this A&E?
I think so.
Yeah,
It's good.
I've heard about it. I haven't had the chance to check in on it yet, but I do generally enjoy the documentaries. So,
So well done. So very well done. Like Roddy Piper was over an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe.
he was an interesting dude. So I would believe they'd have some good stories to say for Roddy Piper.
Yeah, they think they have Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff coming up, and
Nice.
a few others, and but they get into the here and now and then, and then the present of, because Roddy's obviously passed now. So, but just amazing, amazing stories. It was behind the scenes, and it was good behind the scenes, not just, they're making fluff. They really got into it. So I think I would definitely recommend it. It's so good. And because I watched it back then, I was there when Roddy Piper, I was going through that stage. And just after, I think, what was it? When they had the Hogan came in, that's when I was getting a little bit older and getting into the workforce and what have you at that time. So I kind of drifted off from the WrestleManias. And so I was all prior to that time where Roddy was, it's kind of, it's funny to look back, and he was such a bad guy, but I always considered him a good guy.
Okay.
The good bad guy, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he was very good at it. He understood how to do it, and he was a great talker. Like he knew how to engage the audience and get a reaction out of them, and then play into what he was doing. And he could hold your attention. That was the important. Like he understood how to do his job and how to hold your attention and be as despicable as he needed to be in order to make you interested in what he's doing. And if he's doing his job correctly, you want the other guy to beat him up. And when it came time, he would deliver what you expect.
Yeah, they were showing his whole notebook. He used to write everything down. And I think when John Carpenter had him in a movie, he says, Rowdy wrote this down, and this is how I came up with this line, is like, open a can of Whippets, and I'm all out of cans or something, whatever that line is. And he said, Rowdy came up with that. It's like, and we all use it,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he came from an era where they would write their own material. They would
No, but he did this from when he was a kid.
No,
he was one of those guys.
I understand, but that's a skill set that when you have it and you can utilize it. The problem is in today's WWE production, they would beat it out of him. So as soon as he came in with that ability, they would be like, "Yeah, so here's your script, read it."
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
And you'd completely negate any ability that he would have to be like, "What about ad-libbing? What if I can come up with a better way of saying this?" It's like, no, read it as written.
And Hogan's going, man, I hated that guy. We never were friends. He just wouldn't listen, and you had to go his way. He said after it was all over, he said, then we were best friends. But he said during, he was really bad.
You know what's great is that Hogan usually does the opposite. He says, "Oh yeah, we loved each other at the time." It's like usually Hogan claims to be everybody's best friend.
He wasn't then. He said, "No, we hated each other."
That's funny because
it's all business.
Usually he always claims the opposite.
Exactly. That's the stuff that was in here that I've really never heard before. So very well documentaries. Yeah. It's one of those things. I forget the program called. They all do documentaries, story of, life of, or something like that. But they're doing all wrestling, so you should really.
There's a series of them. Recently. My buddy did mention that. I have to go check it out. But no, if the Piper one's that good, I definitely want to check that out for sure.
I think they're all good because it's just great background information. And wrestling was great. I remember I grew up with it. I was going to our Ted Reeves hockey arena, meeting Ric Flair and Haystack Calhoun and all the, Bruno Sammartino and the other guy whose name. Bruno Martino, whatever it was. There was two guys named the same. There was Bruno Martinos and Bruno
Sammartino was one, yeah, for sure.
And then there was Bruno.
There's another Bruno?
Yeah, there was.
Oh, okay.
There was two guys, and they almost looked the same, and they didn't have anything dressed up, just trunks on. And I'll look that up.
Should have been Battle of the Brunos. That would have been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so David G here mentions, did we mention Ed Oatman? So I didn't know who that was. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I would say though, I did look him up here. I would say though, when you're playing like 18 or 20 games a season, like it's not the same thing. But I applaud it. Like it's still, legitimate for his era, but like it's not the same thing.
How long he played? 1910s to, or probably 1908 to
It
what?
shows here something like 1915, 1916 until the 30s.
No, Ed Oatman is in the he's in the C-56 set.
No, he is. What year did he? What
That
year was
that's
that set?
1910.
Okay, so maybe his hockey DB's got to kind of shorten up then.
Oh, there's another site. Well, actually, I know him pretty good. I'll leave him alone.
Regardless, though, like for a lot of those eras, though, regardless, is that there weren't a ton of games per season. So it's like either way, it's like it's still notable. Like it's not unworthy of being noted because I think on brief write up there you go among his 32 years playing professional ice hockey, which is impressive. But again, he probably played less season than like Gordie Howe's first 10 years. Like it's a very different era, very different style. Still notable, but it's like it's not quite the same thing.
Uh-huh.
So Jeff here says, I don't think Beckett, the company, has cared much about the price guide information side for a long time now. Yes. Living off the brand for grading. Yeah.
Yes, true.
That's, yeah. I agree with you, Jeff. I agree with you 100%.
And they had many opportunities to adjust, change, or go forward, and they just really haven't. And it's like business as usual. They've left it alone too long, far too long, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So Becca's grading business during the boom has kept them profitable, but it wouldn't surprise me if SGC eclipses them. I think it's possible, but SGC is going to have to make sure that it has its own production ramped up enough because they ran into immediate problems. When PSA did their suspension of service, they immediately ran into a wall, immediately, which is to say they're still not ready for prime time. They have some work to do. But if they can get that together, then sure. I think the number 2 spot is there for the taking. I really do believe it is.
Only through the fault of PSA.
Correct.
So they're ready for doing their business, but when PSA locked out, so you can't really put it on SGC, and I think they are definitely aimed to being second.
Yeah, but
their
I think
holders look nice. They need to step it up a little bit. Correct. I mean, but for the most part, I think Beckett is kind of passe. I just,
I think they're content to rest in their laurels a little bit, and they have been. They've had plenty of opportunities to fix some things.
It's right here.
Yeah, they've been there by default, and they're still missing the opportunity to be like, well, at least solidify your position. If you're going to be number 2, at least solidify yourself as the number 2, as opposed to leaving some room for somebody to take it from you.
Throw some advertisement out there. Change your gig a little bit. To get, it doesn't take much because at this time the game's wide open. It's like, hey, run in for a field goal. Do whatever you got to do, or run in for a touchdown, get a field goal. Do it. It's open.
But you could punt instead, Bobby. You could punt.
Yeah, it might be a short punt, though.
Yeah, exactly. So here, Jeff says, Beckett's grading business during the boom is like, kept him. Yeah, so sorry, I read that one. I still have, so here, Aussie Card Guy says, I still have Beckett's I use, but only from the early 2000s. Yep. And only to look up inserts, says some pack outs from 97. Yep. So that happens. A lot of folks will buy the guide as a reference on the stuff that they need for stuff that's already happened. They don't need it for the new stuff. For the new stuff, you can just look it up online. You don't really need Beckett for that. So that's a fact. Mm-hmm. Beckett is seen as the authority for so long. I don't think that's the case now. Yeah.
I don't think they were ever the authority.
But they were seen. Seen is key. It's perception.
True.
So Roddy Piper and They Live. That was the movie. I think that was the John Carpenter movie
you're talking about. You're chewing them all out of bubblegum. That's what it was. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the one.
Thanks, Anderson.
Good evening, Steve. All right.
Steve's in the house. The Oracle has landed.
He is. Still got a chuckle from eBay listens to say hi Beckett book value. Yes, true. Haven't seen both the Frank Gotch and Kenny Omega wrestle live in person. Modern day wrestlers would get stretched by someone like Gotch. Yeah. It was a very different style. Omega is very much into the kind of acrobatic artistic style, but it's two different things. Like, let's put it this way. If I was going to get somebody like Frank Gotch, and you're going old school here. If you want to go somebody like Frank Gotch, I wouldn't get Kenny Omega to wrestle Frank Gotch. I would get like an MMA fighter who's a converted professional wrestler, and then he would beat the crap out of Frank Gotch.
It's all fake.
Yeah. But in the older days, you would have some guys that would come out of a little bit of actual amateur wrestling, that they would have that background. And if you wanted to have a guy like it's become a running joke, but it's like when WWE brings in Brock Lesnar, the thing is Brock Lesnar was an NCAA wrestling champion in wrestling, like actual wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kurt Angle was a Olympic gold medalist wrestling. But both guys also understood and got really good at doing the showmanship and the theatrical art of professional wrestling, where like they have the legitimacy in that, like, no, go look it up. In 2000, he was the NCAA champion, or Kurt Angle in 1996 was the Olympic gold medalist in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they have the real credentials, but then by the way, they also happen to be good at this professional wrestling thing. So they can do a little bit of both. And then Brock Lesnar also went to UFC and fought in mixed martial arts as well. So it's like the guys have skills. That's not in question. Very different style though. Kenny Omega is he is an acrobat who can do various things. That's his style. Yeah. But if you want to get into a fist fight, he isn't the guy I would pick. But I go get one of these other guys. You know, they can wrestle just fine. Mm-hmm. And before Hogan, the last real one before Hogan was Bob Backlund. And Bob Backlund had some amateur wrestling background as well. So he was a guy who came up from that originally and then was a professional wrestler. But he was the WWF champion, or maybe it was 3 Ws. I forget. But he was the champion for like 6 years. But it's almost forgotten because he was in the era just before Hogan. Literally just before.
He didn't have a good name.
Well, Bob Backlund, yeah, felt kind of generic. Although when he came back, I loved his character. His character was funny because he was like embittered and he lost his mind. He basically snapped. It was hysterical.
Okay.
It was so funny. He actually played off the fact that when he did his comeback, because he came back in his early 40s. Mm-hmm. And they initially played up the fact he had been champion for 6 years, but he had technically never lost because his manager threw in the towel.
Oh, there we go.
So the whole thing was that he was furious with his manager for having thrown in the towel. He goes, I didn't give up. I didn't surrender. You threw in the towel and I lost the title.
Did he get a rematch? Or
not with the it was the Iron Sheik he lost to. So the Iron Sheik by then was gone. But the point is, at one point, so he attacked his old manager, went crazy and snapped, and then started attacking people all over the place. He did get another title run. But the problem is it was so short. It wrecked the whole thing. Like, it was, to me, I remember this was around 92 and he got the title and then lost it a week later. And I was like, guys, this is in the era before you had weekly television all the time, before you did. Like, there is no reason why you couldn't have had him hold the title for a couple of months, because he was very entertaining in being crazy, because he was like a real wrestler who had this straight edge image. He was the ultimate good guy, boring, but he was this ultimate good guy character. And then when he came back, he was maniacal. He had literally, the character was that he had snapped and he played it perfectly. He was beautiful. And you could buy it. It's like, yeah, the guy lost his mind. He was so mad that he lost the title. He just couldn't handle it. And now he's attacking people randomly. It was actually very fun to watch. And I was very impressed that he was able to, you had no personality whatsoever in your initial run. When you were champion for 6 years, you had no personality to speak of. All of a sudden, you decide just to play this crazy guy, and it's brilliant. It's actually way more fun. I'm like, no, give this man a run with the title. It was funny.
A lot of the champions in the earlier days, like Bruno Sammartino, I think he was the champion, was he not?
He was Bruno Sammartino was champion with an interruption in the middle. He was the world champion for a better part of 20 years.
But he wasn't an overly flamboyant personality. He was that's when wrestling was a little different, I think.
In his era, though, he sold out Madison Square Garden over and over, and they loved him there.
Oh yeah, they loved him. Yeah.
And when he lost, the people freaked out because he'd been champion like uninterrupted for like 10 years or thereabouts, something in that range.
I saw him in 1973, I think it was, or 74.
Yeah. Probably would have been around the peak of his powers there, because he was huge in the 70s, without a doubt. Yeah. So see here, why hasn't Beckett fired the head of company? Because Beckett isn't there anymore.
That's right.
Beckett sold it two sales ago.
True enough.
Yeah, here we go. I had a friend tell me, so talking about the Rodgers thing here, just move on here. All being said, I still buy and grade with Beckett. Buy and grade with Beckett. Okay, yep. As I'm a subgrade collector, they fit my collection. No, that's fair. They do have the subgrades. I like knowing why a card got the grade it did. Not always the case with PSA. Yeah. Don't be surprised though. I did catch in one of the interviews that I referenced previously with Nat Turner, he did talk about the possibility of utilizing the flip and the code on there to maybe give more information down the road.
I think there should be detailed information like you get with a comic.
Yeah. What I'm thinking though, like for me, what if, and this is just something I'm throwing out there, like based on what he said, like I said, at the end of the day, we got to see it in execution. What if you could scan the barcode, because now the code, the The QR code can be
QR
read
code.
by your cell phones. A lot of the modern ones can just
Yep.
read it straight out of the box.
Yep.
What if you went in and used it and were able to open the app and could actually see subgrades? What if PSA started doing subgrades in their system? Maybe you don't put it on the flip. Obviously, you want it on the flip ideally, but what if in order to keep it uncluttered, you included them so that if you scan the code, you can actually see subgrades?
There you go. There's a perfect idea for that because yes, it does look a little bit busy, or it looks empty if you leave it out like CSG did. CSG, yeah.
It could be a good middle ground though, because if you do it not on the flip, if you want it to be PSA and you wanted to put the screws to your competition a little bit, what if you don't put it on the flip, but start including that information going forward and include it for free?
It should be for free.
No, but I'm saying because you say
well, nothing's for free because they already doubled their prices. So let's just say
no, but I'm saying include it in the current price. Include it in the current price without any additional fee, because the other ones specifically add a fee on top.
True.
So instead, you say, okay, look, if it's $30, the $30 includes that going forward. So all the new ones that come in that have this system set up, you scan the QR code and you can get the subgrades as well. Value add, just
I think that would keep them on top for a lot longer. Because they have to, other than improving prices. My friend just got stuff back. He got the last run in just before the prices went up, and he got beat so bad with stains that he can't find a stain. Two big guys looked at it and no stain, but it comes back stain. Jordan sticker, 9 ST, and he goes, "Where's the stain?" I didn't swear, but I tried to. It's just amazing. The crap he got back. He was just so disappointed. Both of them were. And these guys they're on their game. They should work there. Really, but whatever. Yep. So it's like they want, we're going to give you this back, but you're going to send it back anyways at the new price. I don't know. It just seemed like it was like that way. That's big money. Jordan rookie sticker 9 is.
They're definitely gone up in price.
Like you said, protect the pop of Gretzky, like the same kind of scenario.
Like I said, it's like no, but they claim they don't do that, Bobby. They don't protect the pop.
They can never. That would be
fraud. Of course not. Exactly. And yet, interesting coincidences. But
interesting.
Anyway, yes.
We'll just leave it.
All
at
right. So
that.
Sean Avery versus Marty Brodeur cage match. Who wins? I still
Sean Avery.
In theory, here's the thing. In theory, he should. But it's one of those things. I guess I'd have to go back and look. I keep thinking, when I think of Sean Avery, I think as an agitator. I don't remember how often I saw him actually fight. I'd be curious if he'd actually be willing to engage in a fight if he actually had to, other than like talk through people or have referees pulling people off and like take cheap shots and stuff. It's like,
hold me back kind of routine.
Yeah, like it's one thing to do that. It's another thing. It's like, okay, what if you actually have to fight the guy and he's mad at you? You know, are you going to engage him or are you going to turtle if that opportunity? I'd be curious to see. I'd love to see it. I'd be interested.
I just watched some goalie fight. I forget, 2 guys went and one guy just popped the other guy and he went right down. I forget who it was, Edmonton, and I can't remember the name of the guys now. But boy, it's fun watching those fights. The goalie fights, they have the YouTube. You can just,
oh yeah. Well, people
rabbit hole or what?
Yes, people love that though. People love that.
We all do.
Yeah, so Hockey says I should do a spin-off channel or straight old wrestling talk. See, I'd do it, but for that one, I literally would have to get a co-host because it's just too much work. It's a lot of talking because I enjoy it, but it's one of those things where like I would probably have to get a co-host that's at least paying a little bit more attention to the current product. I pay a little bit of attention, but there was a time period. If I had started on YouTube earlier, like in the early days, maybe like in 2006, 2007. Probably could have taken a stab at that because there was so much room on the platform that you could have become a dominant player in that space very early.
Would have been, and you still could now, I think.
Yes, but it's there's so much product though.
But it wouldn't have to be product related so much. That can be part of your focus. I mean, just talking about the old matches and bringing back, man,
sure. No,
it's endless. It's endless.
You can get a lot of it would have to be a combination though, because you can get a lot of mileage talking about, the nostalgia. Hey, remember, remember
Paul
this
Orndorff.
match? Yeah, remember this match from 1987 because I watched a lot of the old tapes, the old WrestleManias and things like that, and all the stuff's on the network, and you can go rewatch a bunch of it to refresh your own memory if you wanted to. And it's fun to talk about that, but if you're doing it and want to have an audience over time, you also want to acknowledge the current product. Even if you want to compare it to some of the older wrestlers and stuff, there has to be a little bit of both. So you have to have a foot in the current, and you can have a foot in the past for context. You can offer, hey, by the way, let me give you a bunch of context here. Let me tell you a story about this, that, and the other thing. Like the Bob Backlund thing was this weird transitional period. But if you understand it, it gives you this unique context where you're like, oh, okay, so that's what happened. Interesting. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. No, I understand. I think, and the collectibles behind it and the cards behind it.
There's a lot
and
of it. There's a lot
the
of
collectibles are worth it. There's some really good, Hogan collectibles and whatever. They did glasses. They did so many different things. So pretty hot.
Yeah, the opportunity is definitely there. There's no doubt about that. But it's one of those things where it's a time and a place.
Pack it up. Let's go. I'm not going, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm making my own show.
Hey, listen, if I need an expert on Haystacks Calhoun, I can always talk to you about that. I know Mike likes the Haystacks Calhoun as well, so there you go.
Yeah, he was a big boy. I love this. Is the dungarees he wore. They could fit like 3 or 4 people in there. I don't think he lived long. He couldn't. There's no way.
Well, there were a lot of wrestlers there. There were a lot of wrestlers in that era that did not live long.
Well, actually, a lot of them.
That lifestyle was not conducive to it.
No, and a lot of them died early. The Ultimate Warrior died early, and that guy was like top condition. But Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff, I forgot about him because he was in there, and I went, wow, geez, I haven't seen him forever. And I named him just like that. It was kind of, so my wife goes, who's he? Because he looks kind of, I said, that's Mr. Wonderful. I said, there you go. Other than me being your Mr. Wonderful, he is Mr. Wonderful.
There you go. No, you always have to love the old wrestling nicknames. And the thing with a lot of those guys, though, is that the thing with the Ultimate Warrior was that he looked like $1 million, but he also did plenty of steroids. Like nobody questioned it, nobody doubted it, but that takes a toll on you. Like eventually, you will pay the price for that. You will look like $1 million,
well,
but down the road, you will pay.
Back then, they didn't really know that much. It's like Arnold. They didn't know what to do. They estimated. Today, they have it down to a science. What they can get away with, how they cycle, how they're in and out. So it's certainly we're at a different time period because all the bodybuilders are on steroids now. It's like, we got a 28-inch arm. Wonder why? Bam. Wonder. So
well, a lot of the current ones, like some of them, it's funny because they'll say like, well, do you think it's like, look at the guy? Do you honestly think like how much lifting do you think they have to do to even have a shot at doing what you're looking at right now? Like there's nothing natural about anything that's on the screen right now. Nothing.
No. There's a few guys who are pure mesomorphs and, the natural, the Mark Wahlbergs don't have to work out crazy just to have it. So, but
yeah.
Who else
I think there's a possibility, but it's one of those things where it's especially today, there's too many things that you can take where it's like, I don't get into the game of natural and unnatural. It's like, I don't know. Some of it will look ridiculous to the point it's cartoonish.
Yes.
You can probably assume there's something off there. But aside from that, it's like, look, you can get a lot done. There's limits, but you can get a lot done if you're willing to work out hard enough and you're willing to eat clean enough. You can do a lot, but there are limits. There's a line at which once you've crossed this line, I'm sorry, the answer is no. I don't believe you.
Yeah, I was watching on what's his name, Ronald Coleman on Bet David. He was interviewing him, and very, very interesting story. Another rabbit hole, because then the wrestling led into that, and then I started watching that. It's like, but amazing stories. But he's saying now they have so many different. He didn't like it because now they have so many different. You're not just Mr. Olympia. There's like 4 other categories, all natural guys, and those guys are like nothing. They're nothing compared to the other guys. They look at them going, yeah, okay, give them their little day, and they come out and like they're ripped, but it's very small. You can only get so big with natural, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's just a fact. There's a finite limit, and you knew. So I included this one, the Robin Ventura versus Nolan Ryan. That was funny. I enjoyed that one. That was a classic. Although Nolan Ryan was kind of a herder. He basically got him in the headlock and started hitting him in the head. It was fun. So
55, 56 Parker.
Yeah.
89 and 55. Wow.
Yeah, I'm quickly scanning through. So give me a nod, Steve, if you're good. Good evening, Steve. How's it going?
What's going on, fellas?
It's
What's
going all
happening,
right.
Steve?
What's going on,
Glad to
Bobby?
see you.
Good. We're just having some fun on this Friday evening.
I'm trying to actually finish wrapping up the workday. Since it's the last day of the month, we book orders all the way up to 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I have to kind of monitor a bunch of stuff.
You got 20 minutes.
Yep,
Yeah.
it's getting close.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I got you.
But since Carlos sent me a text message, I was like,
Well, we were chatting a little bit earlier. I was laughing because I was talking to Steve and Dave, where because the NFL draft happened, I brought out the jersey for the NFL draft just because I was having my fun. Future Broncos quarterback. I got my uniform ahead of time.
I'm hoping. It's one of those in which a lot of it's speculation, a lot of it's rumors. It depends on what you read, how much you read into something. As I alluded to earlier, he was trying to find the article because I wanted to go find it and actually read through it, but it had to do with the way his contract is and the new season and everything else. That pretty much that Green Bay can eliminate $21 million of dead money if they wait until after June 1st, if they do in fact trade him.
Well, I laughed about the draft thing because I understood, and it's a logical timeline. But yeah, there was dead cap money. That it's the quirk of the way the NFL, because to me it's silly, the way they do that. It's like, guys, really, does it make a difference to you now or June 1st? It should be one of those things where it's like, look, can we just waive this because it's dumb? Because does a couple more months really make that much of it, other than dragging this out and making it a nuisance for all parties involved? At that point, it's like, guys, look, if you really want to get this done, look, just agree to the terms. We'll waive it. Just get it over with.
Right. Well, it's like I said, it's one of those when rumors were swirling and everything else. Old school wrestling.
Who is that? I think you muted yourself, Bobby.
I didn't want you hearing me digging around through cards. Lou Newman, who is 55 Parkers.
Yep.
55-6. The 54s are similar but different.
Yep. And I think Mike Canadian Cards. I was putting together a little collection of those. They're interesting because that was one of those things where like.
There's a few big names with Billy Watson and Primo Carnera. He was the boxing champion of the world. He fought against the Cinderella Man, and he's in the wrestling because he was a big pituitary gland kind of overgrown kind of dude. So he was almost like a Andre the Giant ish.
Yeah.
Very big kind of dude.
Yeah, but there were a lot of athletes at that era where it's like, look, it's extra money for you.
But his card doesn't get much respect though, surprisingly.
Well, again, it's about interest, right? Because it's like you've got an intersection between boxing fans, right, and then wrestling fans as well, so that there could be potential there. But I guess like how many like vintage boxing aficionado collectors do you know that collect cards?
Yeah, but some boxing cards have been going crazy lately.
Well, I believe it, but those are dedicated boxing cards, though, right?
Understood, but he's still.
I get it.
He's still who he is. So,
this
is an exclusive Canadian set. So, if it's not talked about, it doesn't really get known. Like you said about knowing certain other things, it's just not mentioned. You don't know about it.
Yep. What's the old philosophy question, right? If a tree falls in the forest, no one hears it.
Yeah, but did it make a noise? Yes, it did.
Physics says so. Science says so, but no one heard it.
No.
Yeah, just a good hockey comment here. Wrestling history is fascinating. That is true. Some of it for nefarious reasons, but yes, it is fascinating. That is a fact, a true fact. And Bo Jackson here. Yes, Bo Jackson was a freak athlete.
Yeah.
But he's right. He's right at that upper limit, though. Like you can believe somebody like that exists, but not much more. Like if you try, if someone pops out and is like a super Bo Jackson who throws even harder or is even stronger, it's like, I got questions, man. Because Bo was scary in his day. The things that he could do at his size and the power that he had.
They're right.
If anybody came out like basically being around like similar attributes to Bo, you'd have to question it.
Well, I think in today's world, we have, they have everything down to a said science of, the right amount of proteins, the right diets, the right exercise programs, the training they go through. It makes you the pinnacle athlete, or can, if you do follow the regimen.
Yeah.
Whereas
sure.
back then, had a big steak before a hockey game. That they thought that was the way to do it. Well, it slowed you down. So
you're saying bro science doesn't work, Bobby?
It doesn't.
Oh man, brutal. So Mike includes here the 55 Parker set has Bronco Nagurski, who again is
big card,
a big name in two different categories. So if it's something that's interesting and somebody's a fan, absolutely. So I get it. I think it's fair. One thing I was going to touch on with what Steve was saying is that I think it's fun though, because it gives the draft a little extra spice. Like in a lot of ways, I'm sure the networks were like thrilled. They're like, God bless you and Rodgers, because even if you drag it out to June, fine, we can talk about it until June. Then we'll have our fun. And it's fun for me because it's like I got a chance. I went to the Packer message boards a little bit just to get a sense of how they felt, just to try to understand. Like let's see what the thing is. And of course, there's the standard. There's what you expect. Some of them are like freaking out about it. Some of them are mad about it. Some of them kind of get it. And it's one of those things where it's like the signs have been there for years that this is a bad relationship that should have like been broken up a while ago for the betterment of everybody. That's why I say like I wear the jersey for fun because it's like I'll still support the player. I followed Favre and I was watching him during that one ridiculous year with the New York Jets. It made me laugh. It was silly, but I enjoyed it. I have a Brett Favre Jets jersey I got on the clearance rack. It was like $10. It was fantastic. And I loved wearing it to my buddy's like Super Bowl party because it made me laugh. So I have a Favre Jets jersey. And I watched him when he was Minnesota. And Minnesota was almost good. The problem is Brett Favre is a turnover machine. But like that time against New Orleans, that NFC championship, like they should have actually gone to the Super Bowl. They really should have. And it's like, but then who knows what would happen? If Favre had won a Super Bowl in Minnesota, I don't know if he'd be welcome back in Green Bay.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a break for a minute. I just got to put my order in before Steve closes. So I'll be right back.
Do what you must. So anyway, so other than that, how's a week treating you, Steve?
It's not too bad. Started kind of getting more involved in some of the new stuff I'll be taking over. So trying to get my hands wrapped around a lot of that stuff.
Nice.
Prepared in hopes that we can migrate some of the business to an existing tool if we can figure out ways to make it work. So it'll be interesting in the next few weeks. But
that's usually the thing. As you start to get into another area, it's always nice. This week was fun for me because they discovered that an ongoing project they had going that I wasn't involved in because I wasn't there. But now I think they've realized that the deadline is coming up. They're like, all hands on deck. And they're like, Carlos, build this thing. And I'm like, sure. It's like, where do you want me to start? Like, I don't mind, but it was just hysterically funny to me that they're like, you guys know that you didn't document anything. I have no idea what you even have in mind here. You basically gave me a spreadsheet with a bunch of things. It's like, okay, look, I can figure it out, but we're going to have to whip this thing together from like scratch and out of nowhere. So
just figure it out and make it work, right?
Basically, yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I am working here now. And I was like, all right, sure. So it's it was funny because because being Friday, I recorded the pickup video for the week, so I took care of that. It's recorded, it's uploaded, it will magically appear 1 p.m. tomorrow. Scheduling for the win, but so it's all good, it's all done, and it's a good week. So there's some good stuff there. If you guys check it out, there's some good stuff. Even a little baseball if you're not of the hockey persuasion. Some cool stuff.
Set related?
Yes. Some cool stuff. If you like your 90s baseball, I got you.
I won't spoil it either. I'll keep it to myself because I know exactly what you're alluding to.
Yeah, it's some good stuff. Is all I'm saying. Some good stuff. But yeah. After I finished recording it, I was like, even in the video I mentioned, it's like live stream Sunday. No, I think we'll take we'll give the Sunday one a sabbatical. I got to figure out what I want to do with it, but at the same time, the Friday one's a little easier. It's a little less strenuous because now that they're being serious, I have like 2 or 3 meetings Monday morning, and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this to myself. Absolutely not. I got to be ready for that, and I have to be fresh because it's booked by the manager, and I'm like, okay, fine. If I have to be fresh, because it's like, okay, what's the status of this? You mean over the weekend? So that's code for I'll be doing a little work over the weekend just to make sure we're on track. But it's like, man, you guys, geez.
Well, and I don't think it's a bad thought process either, though, Carlos. I mean, it's not like there's still not topics to discuss, but at the same time, it boils down to you taking care of you and making sure that you're prepared to do what you need to pay the bills. I don't think anybody here is going to fault you for that. And if there's opportunities for it to kind of spin back up later on down the line, then so be it.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where, and I appreciate that. I agree with you, of course. The other thing though is also, in all honesty, one of the things that I was getting the feeling of is that I put in the second stream because obviously we had so much to talk about for such a while. Like there was a stretch of time where it's like I couldn't fit it in one show. We talk about it, but there was still more to talk about. And then of course we also had the open forum where it'd be like, all right, anybody wants to pop in. But I think weather's getting a little better. I think people are popping outside a little bit, so I totally get it. That's fine. I get that. Somebody hasn't told the weather people around here that hasn't happened, but I believe it. I understand it. But the other thing also is I think people kind of took it for granted after a while. It's like, okay, I noticed that the participation, like people would watch, and I'd hear a little bit here and there. The regulars are chatting away, and we're having a good conversation. But a lot of folks are just kind of passively sitting back, which is fine. That's your prerogative. No shame on that. But it makes it very difficult. Then on mine, it's like, guys, I can't manufacture something. If all I got is if a bunch of stuff's happening on the hobby news, then I got tons to talk about. If a bunch of things are going on, I can talk about that. If you got a bunch of questions, I can talk about that. But if you're quiet and there's not much going on, I'm like, okay, so maybe we need to scale back the amount of hours. Also gives me back more time to do things like, I don't know, sleep and read a book, do something.
Sleep.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's a pretty important thing that we should do.
I heard rumors about this. I've heard good things. I haven't practiced it very well over the last 20 years, but I've heard good things. So here we go. Will LeBron being back tonight sparks Hoops Market? If LeBron does something interesting, I don't think it'll hurt. Like almost anything sparks this Hoops Market.
Yeah, I was going to say anything in the basketball world outside. So have you seen or read, as I go through Instagram, sometimes things I glimpse at briefly, and it's like it's just in passing type situation.
Yep.
Do you know or have you paid attention to when Ball's supposed to be back on the court? Because there was something along the lines of his PSA 10 Prism basically bottoming, so to speak, since he's been out. But at the same time, what are we going to see when he hits the court again? And, big rookie. It's basketball. It intrigues me because there seems to be so much more fluctuation in the baseball or in the basketball market than any other major sport.
Agreed. It's just a lot of it has to do with a lot of dollars being there. Because I like the question because it's like, and DJS, I hadn't seen you before, so welcome. Good evening. The other thing was that it's funny this question comes up is that also like without LeBron being there, that record sale happened with LeBron being out.
Correct.
So like 5.2 million. Now, I will say quick caveat. Private deals are interesting. Private deals are fun because PWCC's done a couple of these now. The 5.2 million 52 toughest mantle, private sale. The Luka sale, private sale. This one, private sale. Funny enough, the biggest record sales are all private sales. They're not auctions. So I'm like, okay, but I'd love to see what it would look like in an open auction. Would you still pay 5.2? I'm just curious.
Was
now,
one of the
big card.
Wasn't one of the Brady's private too?
I think so, yeah. I think one of them. And some of them have sold for auction as well for the Brady's. So like, there's been a mixed bag. But I do think it's funny that these 5 million plus have all been private so far. I haven't seen it in Golden. I haven't seen it in Heritage. It's been private, which is fine. That could be legitimate. That could be a thing. That does happen. Like if you're a person with $5 million and you want to make a big deal or whatever, maybe you want to go the private route and just deal directly with the seller and just be like, let's come to an agreement and I'll pay you the money and we're good. No middleman. Let's just do this. PWCC basically is just there to facilitate the sale, transfer the card from one ownership to another, and move on from there.
I don't feel that's accurate anyways.
I think they probably got a commission of some kind, but it's not the same as the auction where it's 20% on top on one side. Like, I don't think the deal was 20%. Because if you did that, then you could literally get together and just do it. Now, if you have it at the vault, PWCC could be like, look, in facilitating this, we'd like, some kind of a percentage here. Let's have some consideration. But then we can either hold it in the vault for you or we can ship it over to you. What is your preference? And then they operate as like the middleman there as escrow. Money changes hands. Boom. I'll send the card over. Yeah. So I get it. But at the same time, it's like, I'd be curious to see one of these $4 or $5 million sales.
It has to be an auction.
In an open auction.
There has to be a driving price behind that rather than a set price. I think buy it nows really aren't considered, right? Yeah. Are they?
Yeah. And this one here, Aussie Card Dad makes the point here. What's interesting about the LaMelo thing that you were talking about, Steve, was that so Trae Young, I'll use as an example last year. Trae Young had a ton of price action when he was eliminated from the playoffs. He wasn't playing. His price went up without him playing. He wasn't in the bubble. He was nothing. Atlanta wasn't even there. And it was like, in some ways, it was better because the people were like, they were pretending on potential. They're like, well, imagine if, next year he'll light it up. He'll win the scoring title, this, that, the other. So you can use your imagination. In some ways, it's almost like, I won't say it's better because obviously the price did dip down. But at the same time, with when it dips down, some people buy. And then once you reach a certain point, if he's out I've heard conflicting reports about him coming back. I have heard that he can come back this year, or at least they think he might be able to. If he does, of course it'll help. But in a certain way, like if he doesn't and it's like definitive and he's done for the season, I could see the card coming back up anyway.
Yeah, people banking on people trying to buy at the dip, which will then ultimately bring it back up.
Mm-hmm. That's why I say market dynamics are fun, but they're not that complicated. They're not. It's data points are useful to a point, but there is a limit. At a certain point, and I'm convinced more than ever now that I feel like I need to make a standalone video just talking about this one basic concept. There is a thing to be said for once a data point becomes available to everybody theoretically, everybody thinks they're an expert. So now they play this prisoner's dilemma game. If any of you are familiar with the prisoner's dilemma, like they're all trying to outsmart each other. They're sitting there going like, okay, so if I make a move to the left, I will make the most money. But the problem is the guy on the other side is like, so if I make a move to the left, I'll outsmart everybody. It's like, you're both going to do the exact same thing. And as soon as you do it, it negates any advantage you think you have. You're not any smarter. You're looking at the same data set and drawing the same conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not zigging when everybody else is zagging. You're zagging when everybody else is zagging. Or you're zigging when everybody else is zigging. Like you're doing the exact same things. Because you're looking at the same data points and most of you are drawing the same conclusions. So in a certain way, having the data and going away from intuition is actually altering the market. Yeah. So even if you're a person who is trying to, it's almost like you have to be able to play poker. Instead of trying to analyze in poker, you can do percentages. You can sit there, okay, my cards, this board has X percentage of having the best hand. So you can go straight analytical and maybe you'll have some success. But if you're down to a heads up situation, throw out everything I just said. I'm playing the man now. It doesn't matter what I have. It's what you think I have versus what you actually have versus the situation on the board. I can win without having the best hand. In the card game, it's the same thing. You don't necessarily have to be sitting there with the best card to win. You don't necessarily have to make the best play on paper, but maybe you actually did make the best play because everybody else overthought this. And you actually ran yourself into a brick wall instead of coming up with this brilliant play. It's like you tried to find this door and you ran into a brick wall when there was an open window. Why didn't you just go through the window? You weren't looking for it. You were looking for this door. You were obsessed. You had tunnel vision and you missed the window that was wide open. Just go get it.
Some people rather crash the wall than touch the brakes.
Correct. So, but that's real. And that's why I say, like, this has been played out. The stock market is this. There's people who are convinced they can do technical analysis. And there is something to be said for technical. The problem is if enough people do technical analysis, it negates the advantage. As soon as enough people have enough access to the same stuff, the advantage is negated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why these big brokerages and firms with the most advanced data, with the best analysts, billions of dollars they spend on this. What did they do? And there are books written about this. I think one of them is called Flash Boys, if you guys want to look it up. The book basically talks about, they have all these advantages. What did they do? They said, well, we need to get our trades in first. Why? Because then we get the most advantageous spread. So how do we do that? Well, we can build our servers closer to the exchange. What difference is that going to make? Milliseconds. Our trade gets in a few milliseconds before theirs. But then, is that fast enough? Well, what if we use fiber optic cables directly from our servers directly to the exchange? What difference does that make? More milliseconds. To the point that if any of you know what fiber optic cables cost to lay down, it's a lot of money. And it's construction work. It's intensive. To gain a fraction of a millisecond. Why? Because the data wasn't enough. The analysts weren't enough. They needed to get their trade in first. By the way, in the sports card market, he who moves first usually wins.
Mm-hmm.
When the crazy thing is happening, if you're the first one in at the maximum price, you're probably winning. The second and third and 15th person to do it, maybe they'll still get it. Maybe they'll still win, but not as big as the first one.
Yeah.
Not as big as the first one that thought of it. It's down to the millisecond in that market. In sports cards, it's not quite that bad, but the margin keeps shrinking. The spread keeps dropping and dropping to the point that it's like card ladder is a useful piece of data. Market movers is a useful piece of data.
Everybody has the same data.
But everybody who's subscribed has the same data you do.
It's almost silly in a
You're not
certain way
special.
if you think about it. Yeah, exactly.
You're not special. I use it because it's fun for me to look at it because then I can see what you're looking at.
Uh-huh.
But I'm doing it because I understand that I understand that there's no inherent advantage to me having this from a market trading perspective. I understand though that what I'm looking at is what you guys are looking at. So if I want to anticipate what you're doing, I should probably look at your cards, so to speak, which I basically am, because as soon as I see the same piece of data you're looking at, I understand what you're seeing, and now I can try to get into your head. And now I'm playing the man. I'm not playing the cards anymore. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then there's always the issue where, there's the artificial sale that kind of bumps things around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And when we're in record numbers, like I think that's an artificial sale, the $5.2 million. It's not really a real sale. You need an underbidder to really set up precedence opposed to just making a number up and saying, I agree to that. You had nobody bidding underneath you. So that really, is that the market price? No, because there's nobody was willing to pay that under you. So by the third person down, that's where your market value basically is, third or fourth.
I think that's true, but it always gets a little bit tricky. Now I will say the card in question is the LeBron RPA. There's two versions. There's the out of 99 and then there's the out of 23. So the out of 23 is the one that's sold for 5.2. So there are 22 other copies, to be clear. So there is the possibility for another sale, which could then contradict or, confirm. Either way, it could play depending on what happens. Bobby's point, though, is accurate, is that it gets tricky when somebody tries to play this game because, we use an example here. So quickly, Fresh Bread, it wasn't through eBay, but if it was eBay, it's about 10%. eBay does about 10% on the sale.
There's a certain maximum on a card if you have a high level store. So
on a but is it does it apply on an auction though?
Yeah, it applies on an auction too.
Okay.
And you only have to pay a certain percentage. There's a high value dollar that you'll only pay per card, and that's why people get the top store. But that's the big store.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I'm just posing I was posing the question. And I will say though, if you've got a $5 million card, you're not selling it on eBay.
No,
0% chance. Just so we're clear, 0%, because the buyer can back out. There's almost no consequence. Like really, there isn't.
God, yeah.
It's that's why I say like or dislike Golden. That's your prerogative. But at least having a vetted buyer who has the credit to be able to pay for a $5 million card is helpful. Like it doesn't guarantee everything, but it makes the likelihood greater that you'll actually get your money. So you're not going to sell a $5 million card on eBay, period.
No.
But I think you're right. I think there's certainly a cap on the amount, but it's a percentage. But it is definitely a percentage.
Steve, you're off the hook. It's 12 o'clock. Did you get my order in?
No, because you don't order from us.
Oh, come on. I told you. And last time you guys screwed up, I asked you to supersize the fries, and you didn't.
Wow. So I work for a fast food joint.
I didn't say that.
I like everything about what just happened.
Ouch. Ouch.
I don't order from you, but okay.
Anyway,
but you don't.
Maybe not. Maybe indirectly.
You got to use one of your aliases, Bobby. But
I do.
One thing I was
not even indirectly, Bobby. I work in business phone systems, telecommunications.
Hello. Just
not a cell phone.
Everybody knows my name. My pen name is Burrell, but you don't know my real name. Some people do there.
It is true. It is true.
You don't know it. You don't know.
But anyway, what I was going to say is that one of the key things, though, about the underbidder thing is that any product that has, now if it's a one of one, it's a one of one. You don't have a comparable. Like there's not another one out there. If a seller is hell bent on a certain price and someone pays it, well, the underbidder doesn't come into play. It would, but like it can't because there's no other item. But as soon as you have a second copy, the potential is there because then the underbidder becomes relevant again because as soon as the second one sells, even if the first person was denied this opportunity to buy the first one, as soon as the second one comes into play, if the first person's out of the picture, we get a better sense of what the market is. Because if the price suddenly drops like a stone, the first one sells for $5 million, but the second one sells for $150,000, we know the $5 million is probably wrong. Because as soon as you opened one up and everybody else who wasn't the first person got an opportunity, the price was a lot lower. Didn't have to pay that much.
But doesn't that 5.2 million leave it open to unscrupulous? I don't want to go too far into it, but
manipulation.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't say it. You did.
But the thing is,
hashtag don't invest.
I don't mind. But the thing is that it only works, and this is a point that people bring up. It's valid, but my pushback is it only works if somebody else will be like, if the next person who wants one, somebody says, oh, but this one's sold for $5.2 million. That's great. Then sell it to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you 2.
What if they have 2 or 3?
Great. It doesn't matter if you have 20. My point is that if there's no buyer,
what was the previous sale for that? Is there?
There has been for sure, but I don't know what the most recent one was. Definitely
probably
a lot lower.
What was it?
Definitely a lot lower. Probably $1 million. Probably maybe a little over.
You think $1 million?
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, they a couple of those cards had sold for over $1 million. The regular version out of 99 sold for over $1 million.
Okay.
So the out of 23, I'm very comfortable saying over $1 million is reasonable. But the thing is that to get that jump to 5.2 required that specific set of circumstances. I have no way of guaranteeing that if we ran it back with another copy, that you would get close to that. And it goes back to what you said. It's like, it doesn't matter if somebody has 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, you still need a buyer who's willing to go there. If you as the seller say, oh, well, this one sold for 5.2, if I'm the highest buyer left and the other guy already has his card, he doesn't care, he's done. If I'm the highest buyer left and I say 2, you don't have to sell it to me, but it won't go past 2 if I'm the highest one.
True, but you have the perception of reality and the investment aspect coming into here. So if people are looking at it, that $5.2 million sale is a great influence.
Sure.
Although
but you still have to be able to sell it to
sale.
somebody. But you still have to be able to generate the money from somewhere. Because you can hold this card for the next 150 years. And if nobody gives you more than 2 million, it doesn't matter. Now, if you're willing to hold it forever till the end of time, And if you don't own 20 of them and you're holding one of these and you're holding firm, you want to get that same 5.2, but 20 of them sell over the next 5 years and none of them go over 2, the preponderance of evidence actually works against you.
And I think more are going to come to market
Sure.
with that sale in
Correct.
itself.
And some of those folks may not be as concerned about getting the full maximum. If I have that card and I bought it years ago, it's the out of 23. Let's say I paid $100,000 for it. I paid good money back in the, 10 years ago, which would have been good money back then. And I can get 3.5 or I can get 2.7 or something compared to my $100,000. Do I care?
How many of those do you think are going to come to market in the next little while? Two
really
or three for sure.
Golden would love to see 22 of them come to market through his auction. I don't think he'd put them all up at the same time, but he would definitely love to see the other ones come through his doors.
Yeah. But anyways, that's not even collectors. Those are total investors. Collectors with maybe billions, but I mean, whatever at that point.
Yeah, but I still question the fact that A, it's a private sale. 2, to me, it seems out of the ordinary that if you look at the base version, which is the true RPA,
yep,
at a little over $1 million, you then pay 5.2 for a rookie parallel. Yes, I get, it's limited, so on and so forth. But how many people think that, let's say in 10 years, it's going to appreciate from that 5.2? The chances are it's not, because more come to market, they sell for cheaper, then technically you have a depreciating asset.
Or an appreciating asset too. Maybe the next one goes for 6.5. Maybe the next one goes for 8, 10. We can't talk 10 years down the road in this kind of industry because it's a different industry than what you
that's correct.
Before.
Yeah. Now, this goes back, though, to the market psychology thing I said a little bit earlier, playing in a different way, but the same idea. We're thinking from the seller perspective now. So let's put it into context here. Let's think about the same card. Let's pretend all 3 of us, for the sake of argument, have that card in our possession right now. So we know that one of them, presumably, let's pretend, like I said, for the sake of this scenario, let's pretend that $5.2 million sale is legit. A buyer was willing to pay $5.2 million specifically, made a deal, decided, I don't care. I got $5 million. Here you go. Give me the card. Fine. Sure. Legit sale, and we've all got a copy. So we've got 3 of the remaining 22 copies. There's 19 more out there, whatever, fine. But we're in different situations. The Ziggy Palfy money came in. So I'm sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars. So I can afford to sit on that card forever because I don't care. I got 9 figures. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. Mm-hmm. I can afford to sit on it forever. Somebody else, situation number 2, Steve's got his life. He's doing his thing. He's got his family. But you know what? You sell the card off for $3 or $4 million or $2 or $3 million. House is paid off. This, that. He can get us some sweet Terrell Davises. He can do all this, that, and the other thing. And he could just take his money right now and walk. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're sitting in the middle. You've got some money. House is paid off. You don't necessarily need to do anything. But it'd be kind of nice, as you fix the website, you do your thing. You know what? Maybe I'd like to get myself something nice. You don't have to. It isn't an immediate benefit to you, but you wouldn't mind having the cash. Mm-hmm. Same card, 3 different scenarios. Someone is more motivated to sell potentially because the benefit to them is more immediate and impactful. One person can sit there, hold it forever, and one person's kind of in the middle. He could take it or leave it.
Yeah, but the percentage of those people are varied.
Sure. I'm totally with you, but I'm saying.
And why did you get to be the guy with all the money? How did that work?
I got the Ziggy Palfies, man.
I forgot.
It's his show.
There's far less of you. You're the 1%.
Obviously.
I am probably the 50%, and poor Steve is slumming it down there.
Well, you put him in the fast food industry. It's not my fault. I did not do this. I didn't do this.
You implied it though, Bobby, when you talked about
I know. You said the man.
I sure did.
You asked the man for supersized fries. You're the one who did this to him.
I said, don't forget. I didn't say anything beside that.
All right, let's rewind it so we can.
We'll go back to the tapes. We'll go back to the tapes on this one.
Please do.
But the point that I'm making is that the motivation on the different sellers could totally differ. I gave 3 different versions, the 2 extremes, And then I gave kind of a middle ground, because there's going to be some folks who are like, okay, if the price is right, if I can get somewhere near the 5.2, I'll move it. Somebody else is like, look, you could offer me 10 and I don't care. And somebody else would be like, 2 or 3 million is life changing. Going back to the NFL draft thing, it's for most people that is life changing. Mortgages are paid off, debts are paid off, the car's paid off, this, that, student loans, medical bills, whatever. Done, and done.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're in a much more comfortable state of mind. So does squeezing the extra million or two in that situation matter to you? Not necessarily.
No.
Take the cash money and, live on with the rest of your life. It's a piece of cardboard at the end of the day. But it depends. At
the end of the day, it's the big boys playing around, and it has really nothing to do with 99.99% of us.
Correct. But that's the thing.
But we talk about it like it's so pertinent, but it isn't. It's the big boys playing big games.
Yeah, but the reason I brought up the 3 different scenarios is that in that scenario, one of the cards would sell probably quicker, but so you got a $5.2 million sale, and then you get a $2.7 million sale. So what's the real market value? Let's say those are the 2 sales back to back. You get a 5.2, but then the next one comes out of the woodwork. Somebody who is like, you know what? I'll take 2 or 3 million. Your offer's 2.7. Sure. Fine.
Sure. Why not?
I'm out of the market.
What if game? Sure.
So now, but now we're sitting there with 2 different sales, 2 both pretty sizable amounts of money. Like it's $3 million is nothing to sneeze at. It's not disrespect, but it's almost half of what we just sold one for. So what's the real market value? Are we somewhere in between? Is it the top end? Is it the bottom end? Was the 5.2 an anomaly?
Did the other one sell in an auction, or did the other one sell in
Let's say they both sold at private sale. One was 2.7, one was 5.2. 2 private sales.
Okay. So we eliminate those and go back to square one until it comes up in an auction. And we
got to wait for Bobby to sell his at auction.
He
goes to his best friend Golan and go, Kenny boy, listen, we were talking at the country club, and you know what? It's time for me to move this thing. I need some knickknacks, man. I need some knickknacks, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly how the conversation will go, by the way, guys. It's exactly how it'll go. That's verbatim right there. Verbatim.
So you think. But
we know you have Golden on speed dial.
Yeah,
Bobby, don't lie.
It's like Bobby. It's like the White House phone to the Kremlin. It's actually not a phone. He just picks it up and it auto dials. He doesn't even have to hit speed dial. It's the red phone.
I was thinking more of the bat phone, but anyways.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe after you sell it, you can have the bat phone. But before that, you're getting the red phone.
I guess. Yeah, it's the big fun games that everybody's playing up there, and I look at those sales and I just turn my head and I don't really even care. Is it even relevant to what we're talking about?
But I'm posing the question only because that scenario, again, as remote a scenario as it is, that scenario does create a challenge for someone trying to establish the market value. So if those 2 sales happen in that silly scenario I made up, but if those 2 scenarios happen, you're someone else holding the card. You're sitting there like, okay, so what do I price this thing at? Because you're having to like try. Okay, so then I guess I take it to auction. Yes. But then what do I think is going to happen if I'm the seller? What do I hope?
What happens, happens. Sorry, it's just the way it is. This market of these private sales and 5.2 means nothing. Shouldn't mean nothing to anybody.
No, I get you. But what I'm trying to get at is that if you're a person with the card, maybe you don't want to go to auction. Maybe you want to see if there's someone crazy enough to overbid for them, basically bid against themselves.
Well, you should get off the pot, one of the two. So you take a chance, like you're taking a chance all the time.
I agree with you, but you don't have to, because if you have the item, and there is the thing with bidding, real quick, the thing with the auction situation is that in any auction house worth their beans, you could theoretically be willing to pay 10 million, but you're only going to pay 1 increment over the underbidder, whatever that is. That's it. So you could be ridiculous in your head and have a lot of 10 million to this, but if no one comes close to that, you'll get it for a discount, quote unquote, compared to what you were willing to pay. Mm-hmm. But now in a private sale situation where there's theoretically no underbidders, but at the same time, the card's right in front of you, you could sucker or con the person into bidding closer to their max. You could get somebody to be like, well, maybe the next one that comes up is to be 7.5 or 8 million. Now that may not be true whatsoever, but if the person believes you and they go, look, I'll give you 6.5 deal.
It seems like the 5.2 million is just a positioning for the person for some attention. I guess it's sort of,
well, it is because they publicize it. PWCC doesn't brag about it unless they're allowed to. They were told they could tell.
Of course.
Yeah.
Is that a real sale? Not in my books. It's just somebody made an exchange. Guy got a card. He's got too much money. Has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with him. It's, why wouldn't this guy? So somebody went ahead and just went, 5.2. Yeah, let's negotiate. Really? Why wouldn't you bring it to auction? Do you think you're going to pay? If you're going to pay 5.2, you pay 6.5 or 7 at that point. Because really, if you're talking that much money. So why wouldn't the guy run it through the auction? Because he knows that he can make the deal at 5.2 and he'll take the 5.2. That bumps that card up right at that point. And when they make it public, it assures people that, that card is worth, the next one should sell for 5.2 at least. That's where it gets a little nefarious, where I think things go on.
No, that's a fair point. But the point that I was trying to make earlier, and the counter to that is that if you do the private sale route, you can basically do it risk-free. You could ask for $100 million, and the other guy could laugh at you, and you'd be done. No harm, no foul. Doesn't matter. Then it never happened. Mm-hmm. But if, say, you ask for $8 million, and the other guy's like 4, and then you go back and forth, and you end up at 5.2, then you could be like, fine, sure, and then you're done. But because it happened behind closed doors, no one saw the process that you threw out a ridiculously high number. They tried to go below, and then you ended up in the middle at 5.2. And you did it without having to worry about... In an auction, you do take your chances, because this is what I said a second ago. In an auction, you only one increment above what the underbidder is. If it turns out the underbidder was only willing to go to $2 million, the final auction total would have been like 2.1. Mm-hmm. But in this private auction thing, in this private sale situation, you can squeeze more because the other person is only thinking about their desire to possess the thing. They're not actually bidding against anybody except themselves. You're doing a back and forth. It's like you at a booth. You're not doing an auction at your booth. You're talking to the person and go, this is my price. I'll give you half of that. And then eventually you meet somewhere in the middle, whatever your number is that you're happy with, that works for you, and that they're willing to pay. And the deal is consummated and you're done.
Who's paying the record price, though? Why would you want to pay a record price? You just want the notoriety.
That's the other aspect of it, and it allows you to do it. And it allows you to do it. And as a seller, it allows you to, like I said, take minimal risk, because, like I said, if you can't find a number in a private sale, then nothing happened. You didn't sell short, and you did not meet the minimum reserve, and none of those things happened to you, because if you can't come to a number, the deal never happened. You both walk away.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you took almost no risk at that point.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's specific intent behind that sale, but
sure.
Just my feelings. Yeah. And like I said, we're all out of the game at that point. It's, you open one in a pack, happy days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it does help, I guess, somebody who's going to buy a box or find one of those in there. Good for them. But I think a lot of them are going to come to market now because it stimulated some desire, I guess. We're at these 5.6 point, 4 point, whatever. It's craziness for cards. It's insanity.
Yeah, for all we know, Nat Turner could be the owner of the next one, since
Steve's got it.
Well, he posted he has a case of exquisite.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we can't assume they've all been pulled.
Correct.
Most of them have, I would say.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, the product's been broken, but the thing is, like I said, Nat has. Was it a case or a box? Yeah, it was a case.
I'm pretty sure it was a case.
Would you even get that one per case?
Oh, no. I agree with you. The odds are long. But if he's willing to open it up and he happens to pull one, it's one of those things. It is still mathematically possible because, like I said, I don't think all of them have been pulled. So quickly, I'll grab this comment here. So good evening, Victor. Have a good one.
Victor.
Apparently he's hanging around, Victor. Yep. So have a good evening. I know the guys were talking about Jeff. He was talking about Banksy. I have heard of him. I'm not too familiar with him, but I have heard the name.
Yeah, I was going to say I know the name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something. One of the ones, and shoot, I don't even remember when it was, but went up at auction at some big auction house for. I don't know if it was over $1 million or over $2 million or whatnot, but not long after the transaction took place, it's like the painting activated and the whole damn thing shredded. It went through a shredder. Mm-hmm. in the frame. And I'm like, that hurts. If you're somebody who just spent, $1 million or $2 million on an art on a piece of art, and then all of a sudden it's sitting there laying on the ground in shreds, you're like, can I get a refund?
Or sell it as a Jackson Pollock, and you're good.
Oh, come on. Are you trying to say we can't fix it with it's like, guys, duct tape. Just tape it on the back. No one will ever know.
True.
It's art restoration. With duct tape? Yeah, bro. It's part of the aesthetic.
Style.
It's part of the aesthetic, man. Duct tape can fix everything. Trust me. So quickly, I'll grab this one here. Yeah, that's part of it all. The shredding. Yeah.
Well, and I give the guy credit. That's not something that most people would think of doing, but it's one of those. Was he the one who bought it just to be able to demonstrate the whole final end game that he had already planned? Mm-hmm. Was he there at the auction? Was it on a timer? I mean, it makes you wonder how in depth he went for this one specific piece of art to then have it shredded to however many pieces after it was sold.
Well, the funny thing about stuff like that is that, and they talk about it in this world, hedge fund managers are kind of famous for this, that they want to enter into the art world. They want to be known for this stuff. And they'll just spend record amounts of money for no other reason than to say they spent more on a Picasso than anybody else.
Bragging rights.
And it's like, yeah, but it literally is. It's like, okay, so it's Picasso. Okay, what period of Picasso? Like, what was the point of the piece of art? What does it mean? What is it? Tell me something about it. Well, I don't know. Well, you spent $140 million on it. Do you want to know anything about it? Like, other than it's Picasso?
It's his early charcoal stuff.
But that's the thing. It's to that level of like, there's no sophistication. And by the way, at the end of the day, it's your money. Do whatever you want, just to be clear. But it's like, there's no sophistication to it. There's no knowledge base behind it. It's like, it's a Picasso. 140 million. Sure. I paid more for it than anybody else. And that's literally it. It's like you get like a plaque. I spent more money on Picasso than anybody else. It's like, congratulations. Good for you.
It's bragging rights amongst others in the same game.
And it's specifically like other hedge fund managers and other rich folks. Is it the ones that they're bragging to? Because the average folk is like, look, it could have been $140,000. Could have been $14,000. I can't afford it anyway. Yeah. It's like, we could have gone by a factor of 100 times less and it still would have been too much money. Yeah, exactly. All right. So let me quickly grab this one here. Banksy had a video made with some paintings and paid someone to sell his art in Central Park. Okay. That's fair enough. Sounds good.
I always wanted a bolero though. Anyways.
Nice. So I want to touch on a couple of things regarding the draft with you, Steve, but I'm going to be right back in 2 seconds.
Count it down.
1, 2. Welcome back.
Those are Canadian seconds, Steve. Those Canadian seconds could drag on quite a
Takes
while.
about
in Nunavut, you got to send it by Nunavut around the Bay of Fundy and then bring it back around.
Yep.
I'll say, okay, so in other words, your 2 seconds is like my wife's 30 minutes that actually turns into like 5 hours. Okay.
That could be, but I think I can do under 5. I promise you under 5 hours. How's that?
Okay, good deal.
Done deal.
Same math equation, that's all. Very similar. So was the draft good for you, Steve?
I questioned the pick because Denver picked up defensive backs and free agency fairly well. I mean, they didn't get any slubs really. So it's one of those in which kind of circles back to, well, if they're working on, trying to get a deal done for Aaron Rodgers, was that pick actually for Green Bay?
What was the best deal, I guess, in the draft?
Define deal.
Well, who got the best bang for their pick or buck?
Honestly,
it's not always the first round. It's not always or the first pick.
And you're right. I'm actually going to say New England because their guy Mac Jones fell in their lap.
Okay.
A surprising one that surprised me a little bit was Chicago moving up to go and draft Justin Fields. So
that's the fun. You just never know what's going to happen. It's kind of interesting. It's nice when it's very interesting because that makes a good draft day.
Well, and they I mean, all of them pretty much stated that 1 and 2 were pretty much solidified. Almost everybody had Lawrence, and then what's his butt from BYU, Zach Wilson, as 1 and 2. And the question was, who is San Francisco going to take? They're going to take Trey Lance, or are they going to take Mac Jones?
Who do you need most, I guess?
Well, they went with Trey Lance, so it kind of changed some things from the draft perspective. So it was interesting to watch. Not as many trades as I was expecting. Some teams were speculated to trade up and didn't for whatever reason. So, I mean, it was interesting to see how they still had some there in the green room and everything else, but then you had others, Trevor Lawrence being one of them, who everybody knew he was going number 1, why he wasn't there. So that was a little unusual for me, but I'm sure that there were specific reasons as to why.
Well, they didn't even mention why.
They usually don't go into details when it comes to stuff like that.
Which is ironic given the amount of time between picks they have. Like, they have enough time. I strongly suspect, Bobby, that under the circumstances, the top picks probably had a little bit of a choice. Some of them, I'm sure, wanted to be there to have the moment. Because there were folks there, like it was in pockets. They had folks there limited. But it's like, if you're Trevor Lawrence, obviously it would be kind of cool to have the moment and do all that. But or you could just be in your house with your family and your friends and just chill, and because you already know you're number 1.
Yep.
So it's like, do you care? It's like, look, do I need to hug the commissioner that badly? Nah, it's all right. We can wait for another moment for a photo op.
It's sort of an event you wouldn't want to miss. It's a big event. That's huge.
It would be under normal circumstances, but like I said, they did have to restrict the amount of people that were there. Like, they had to adjust it accordingly.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So
I
it's like,
forgot about COVID for a minute there. So.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's a spectacle it would normally be. Like, there were people there. Like, you could still hear, Roger Goodell getting booed at appropriate moments. Certain fan bases booed harder than others. I did enjoy that.
Well, and it's one of those, maybe he hadn't been fully vaccinated. The whole
that could be
requirement was that whoever was there, players, Goodell, and the fans all had to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
That was the only way that they could be there.
Yeah. And anybody else related to the venue as well also had to be tested prior to, so they had to have clearance that everybody involved was like, we're cool, because Goodell's not there with a mask on. He's got to do his thing and whatever. But the fans, there were some that were invited onto the stage. I didn't quite catch I know each team had a representative, like a fan, sitting in like the chair, at least for the first early picks. I don't remember what the specifics were about it.
Okay, so I'll kind of shed some light on that. So the whole interesting aspect of it was, if you watched last year's draft, Goodell sat in this leather, ugly-looking chair for the entire first round of the draft, since it was all done virtually.
I actually kind of liked that, to be honest with you. I thought it was so weird that I actually kind of enjoyed it.
It was different. It was unusual. Yeah. But then again, you actually got an inside view of, GMs and hello. Thanks, Bobby. Was that you, Bobby?
Yes, sorry about that.
You get an inside view of these coaches and GMs, their houses, their offices, whatever,
right.
And even the players for that matter. But so what they did is they brought said chair to this year's draft in Cleveland, and it actually, they pick a fan for each team, and they sit them in the chair until Goodell announces the pick. They've actually continued it at least through the second round that I saw earlier. I turned it on briefly just to see, because since Denver was picking 9, I was like, okay, I won't have to watch too long, because second, third, fourth, all the way through the 6th, those picks start moving really quick.
Right.
So, but I noticed that they were still having fans sitting in the chair, at least for the second round.
Okay, that's cool. At least they kept some. I do appreciate the consistency. I think that's actually pretty cool. I like that. I will say, like I said, as a television product, I get it, but it is very odd. It feels odd sometimes because with the draft, you have all this downtime in between. And with less fans there, it is a little bit tricky because sometimes the reaction of the fans is as much fun as anything else. The early picks, there was intrigue. Aside from Trevor Lawrence, you're like, okay, who's, like Steve said, who's going to be number 2? Who's going to be number 3? Depending on who gets chosen where, how did the domino, because then teams have to adjust. If they see something they don't expect, something weird, like, wait a minute, hold on. This person was supposed to be off our draft board, but now they're back on. Wait, do we still want to pick the one we were going to pick, or are we going to change our plan? And different maneuverings. My favorite, though, and it wasn't a relevant pick, but it was fun for me. I enjoyed it. And I wanted to get it. I wanted to pull it up here, and I did find it. So when the Giants made their pick, so this was Kadarius Toney. What I loved is, and I saw this when I was watching the live feed. I was watching this guy right here, and it was funny watching just prior to the pick, and then after the pick, it was just like, who? And even with the mascot, I could like see him almost mouthing out like, who? What? Huh? It was great. I loved it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, was it Chicago who traded with the Giants?
It might be because I know Chicago traded up, right, to get the
to get Fields.
Yeah, which was good for Chicago. So, like they haven't had a quarterback in quite a long time, actually. In fairness, though, like in the modern era at all, have they ever had like an actual quarterback? Like Jim McMahon won a Super Bowl with them, but it wasn't because of Jim McMahon.
No,
like he was there, but I don't think Chicago's ever really had a quarterback.
Cutler was all right, but
yeah, he was fine.
I still have issues with Cutler
for reasons.
Yep.
Yeah, but the reaction of the fans is half the fun. Like if they're legitimately perplexed by the pick, that's why the Giants fan, like the look on the guy's face, like he's like, it was so good.
What's even more, and I always love this because you can almost count on it. Mm-hmm. When the Raiders come up to draft in the first round, you can almost count on it. You had the entire panel. You had Booger McFarland. You had Mel Kiper, and I can't remember the other two guys. And Goodell announces the pick, and they're like, there was like a pause because they're sitting there going, okay.
We must say words. We must say words.
So then, of course, they have to, start digging deep into stuff because they drafted a guy who was like, they're saying second, third round talent, and he's going in the first round.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, he's from Alabama, so, I mean, it was a big deal. 5 Alabama players in the first round?
Something like that, yeah. Well, I thought what was interesting was that Trevor Lawrence, I believe I could be mistaken, I think Jacksonville grabbed him and I think his running back. Like I feel
his receiver.
Oh, sorry, his receiver.
Yep.
Yeah, so was there another one where they had the quarterback and the running back? Because I feel like there was a team that combined the two in the first round.
So was it the Clemson running back, Etienne?
I thought so. Yeah, it was.
Maybe it was. No, I was thinking of Cincinnati drafting Burrow's receiver.
Okay, right. Yeah. So no, it is Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. So they got both of them in the first round, which was interesting. As like I said, to put it this way, it is for me as a viewer, and I'll put myself in the casual fan category. But I'm a casual fan who watches a lot of games. So it's one of those things where like I'll watch enough games where if I wanted to try to upgrade myself up a level to a little bit more than casual, I could. But I'm like, I got stuff to do. But I watch a ton of games and a ton of football. So I'm an informed casual fan. Let's put it that way. But my interest in the draft is still limited because I don't watch a lot of college ball. I'll watch a little bit here and there. Yeah, I'll watch a little bit here and there. So I know some of these players. If you say the name, I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of know who that is. But it's mostly the big name guys that get repeated. You'll hear certain ones. So for me, then when you're watching the draft, you're either paying attention for your team, you're paying attention to maybe drama with some trades or some moves in the first round. That might be interesting. But with the amount of downtime between picks, you're hoping for storylines. You're looking for something. So even just something as simple as, okay, so they got Trevor Lawrence and Etienne. Okay, that's kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. At least those guys know each other. So right there, as an offense, Jacksonville got themselves a combination. So will that work for them long term? Who knows? But it's something interesting.
Yep.
And they were willing to do it in the first round, so they obviously thought enough of Etienne to use a pick for that.
Yeah, and then so Pittsburgh drafted a running back, and of course, which they needed, of course, but almost everybody, it's like
they also kind of need a quarterback.
They do, but in this day and age, it's all about offense, receivers, quarterback, tight ends, the passing game. And, they all sit there and criticize the fact of taking a running back in the first round. It's like those guys probably, some of those guys could have been there in the second round. But, if you look at when the running backs were taken, obviously those teams felt that was the right time. So who's to say that wasn't the right time? Because if you waited to the second round, then you're getting lower tiered, on the rankings of that position.
Right.
I mean, Denver drafted a running back in the second round. Their pick in the second round was a running back. Right. But they needed it, and that made sense.
So here, let me ask you a question. Let me pose a philosophical question to you, and then we'll go from there. Because your main PC guy is a running back. So, obviously you have an enjoyment and affinity for certain running backs. But okay, so you're going to use a first round pick anywhere in the first round. Let's say from the middle to back end of the first round. Still first round, but let's not say the absolute top pick. What kind of production do you feel like you need to make that worth your while? For a first round pick.
That's interesting. And I talked about this briefly, this past Tuesday on the Insert Revolution podcast. You have to look at the intangibles. It's not just about number of carries, so to speak. You're not looking for a guy that can carry the ball 30 times and, give you 100 yards consistently. You have to have other intangibles. You got to have a guy who can, catch it on the, on a fly route, on a wheel route, has good hands. Somebody who can also help you in the return game. So from that perspective, it's not just about the running game itself. He has to be an additional threat. If you've got a 4-receiver set and you spread out your running back, you got to worry about him though too. So
but
that's the type of production.
If you have that type of player though, then you have an offensive weapon. I don't just treat him as a running back. Those additional things, maybe if he's got good hands and can do some of those things you're talking about, then he's a weapon. Then it'd be like, okay, so I can use you here, but maybe they're absolutely stopping everything dead in its tracks. But I can then send you out and then dump off a pass and you can find some room. You create some offense in different ways, which is good. That to me increases the value. So that adds to it. And then as a first rounder, that's more valuable to me. That makes total sense. But the reason I'm posing the question is that one of the things that I've seen, unless the guy is elite or maybe has those multiple skill sets, like exactly what you just talked about, unless that's the case, if it's a guy who predominantly be a running back and that's mainly his job and that's kind of what he does, history has shown that you can get ones that are perfectly capable in the later rounds. It just depends on how badly you need one. Yep. Because, Washington, there was a stretch there in Washington years ago where they had like 1,000-yard back, like 4 or 5 different years, and it was like 4 or 5 different guys. It just didn't matter. The line was so good that they're like, yeah, look, it's like, who they have? Clinton Portis, they had this guy, they had Dave Archer. Like 1,000-yard backs, all of them. It didn't matter. Like, just throw him back there, give him the ball. There's room, run through it. There's a hole, run through it.
That was Denver too, for a stretch.
And if you have So there are certain teams that are already configured in such a way where, like, look, unless you suck, we can probably get you to 1,000 yards. If that's the goal, we can probably get you there. So then do we need to use a first-round draft pick on that? Not necessarily. You can go to the second or third round and probably get somebody who's perfectly capable of doing that job. Now, a multifaceted back who can also catch passes and do all this stuff, totally. But to me, then they extend beyond the regular running back and they become an offensive weapon.
Yep.
So that's why it's kind of interesting. So the question is then, and I know the guy you're talking about because I think the running back that they picked, the Steelers, was who was with the Alabama guy?
Najee Harris.
Yeah. So the question is, I haven't watched any of the games for him. So is he that kind where he can also catch passes and do some of that other stuff? Or is he predominantly a back?
To be honest, I really, as the night progressed, I wasn't paying as much attention to some of the film and stuff that they were showing. I didn't watch a whole lot of Alabama games.
Yeah.
I know he is kind of like a power back. The guy can run through people.
Sure.
But most running backs, it seems really in the college world that really make a good transition into the NFL are that multifaceted back, though. It's not just the running game. Somebody else can please pipe in. Like I said, the draft ran longer than what I was expecting, so I really stopped more not paying attention to a lot of the film and some of the stuff of what they were saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Blessing Breaks here is saying complete. Catches out of the backfield, great
So,
blocker. Well, that's the case. Well, great. Then probably a decent pick. I guess though it just depends. Maybe this would be the way that I would put it because it goes back to kind of my initial conversation at the beginning where I said sometimes you can upgrade at a position and maybe it's still not what you should have done because sometimes your deficiency is in another area. Now, obviously, I don't doubt that the Steelers are going to. Roethlisberger is washed. Like you're not going to be able to fix that unless Harris is so complete that does he throw passes? does he play quarterback? Because you might need him to.
There's still a couple good quarterbacks outside of the top five that, of course, that went in the first. We're almost quote unquote guaranteed going in the first round. There's still a couple guys out there that have that possibility.
Sure.
They're a little bit more raw, I guess. So, sitting behind somebody will definitely help them. And, we know Roethlisberger is coming back for 1 year or one more year. Mason Rudolph is not the answer.
No.
I mean, that was obvious when he stepped in and played.
Is Tommy Maddox available? I don't care how old he is.
So I feel this one was a lot more mysterious though, because as I was telling Bobby before you came back, the whole outcome of the draft was like surrounded around the third pick for San Francisco.
Yep.
If they go Trey Lance, then this is probably how it's going to work out. If they go Justin Fields or Mac Jones, it's going to end up going this way. And, not knowing what some of the details surrounding part of that is, because depending on if you're, a subscriber for ESPN or whatever, sometimes you don't get some of that other insight aspect of what the rest of the draft is going to look like if they go one way or if they go the other way. So I don't know exactly if it ended the way that it was supposed to because they drafted Trey Lance or not. But it was interesting to say the least. Denver got a hell of a cornerback. I'm not going to deny that, but I still question that pick for the simple fact that they picked up two guys in the offseason in free agency. So at least from my team's perspective, I question theirs. I mean, the kid's talented. He's, NFL ready, so to speak. It runs in his blood as far as the family name is concerned. But I don't know. It could be, as I said, I know you've probably accepted the fact that Rodgers probably will not be in Green Bay next year.
Well, I think I could be mistaken, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, because I definitely had this conversation with some combination of you or Dave or both, where might have been even maybe on the Instant Revolution podcast on Tuesdays at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. There you go, free plug. But the thing is, I feel it might have been the one that maybe Birdcat was on, maybe. But I know I explicitly I've definitely said on a live stream, mine or yours, some combination therein, repeatedly, that this combination of things wasn't going to keep working. I knew that some time ago. So it's not even about acceptance. It's like, I've been through this. I was a Favre fan before Rodgers started. And I understood when the tail end, like, we've seen these signs. I literally have a book that's called Life After Favre. There's a book written of talking about that transitional time period. It's called Life After Favre. I've got it on my bookshelf. It's literally one of the first books over here. And I read it back then. I'm waiting for Life After Rodgers. That'll be the sequel forthcoming. Because they've done this before. And the succession, this team does not understand how to succession plan. The thing is, these quarterbacks don't last forever. By the way, Rodgers was an MVP this past season. So it's not like he's playing bad. That isn't the issue. The issue is that he's not happy with the way that you've done this, where you've tried to play this weird middle ground game where you're like, okay, look, we'll pay you a lot of money. So shut up and just let us do whatever. But then it's like, but you guys aren't really good at this management thing. You've squeezed the bare minimum out of this opportunity that other teams would kill for.
Yep.
So, like, how many other franchises would be like, so what you're saying, just so I understand you correctly, you had a Hall of Fame quarterback, right, in Bart Starr in the 60s, right, and then after he retired, right, then nothing for most of the 70s, nothing for the 80s, you luck into Brett Favre out of nowhere. He's drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, of all teams.
Yep.
He falls into your lap, becomes a multi-time MVP, goes to back-to-back Super Bowls. You do win one, so you have that run. And then you accidentally stumble onto Aaron Rodgers, who falls to you and has to sit in the green room all night. So he's mad. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He sits for 3 years, becomes a multi-time MVP, and you win a Super Bowl there. You get to so many NFC championships, it's disgusting. So you're right there constantly. But you consistently have a bottom side of the league defense for a decade. And then you wonder why you don't get over the top. And it's like, and you had this great prolific offense. The issue wasn't the offense for a decade. Now the offense is kind of okay. It's fine. It has he threw for 48 touchdowns, but it was the most uninspired, awkward 48 touchdowns I've ever seen. Which, by the way, is a lot of touchdowns. Just so we're clear, it's a lot. It's one of the best seasons statistically ever, but it still was awkward, and I watched every game. I assure you, it was awkward. I don't know how we got there, and I watched it. But despite that, really good season. But I kept looking at it and go, okay, so Devontae Adams is the number one wide receiver. Cool. Who's the number two? Lazard, for a game. Equanimeous St. Brown, never. It's like Valdez-Scantling. No! This is my problem. My problem is you can't give me a straight answer.
Yep.
But that, in a nutshell, that's the thing. So I'm watching this, and it's frustrating because I kind of know how this story's going to end. And by the way, they got the NFC Championship again.
Yep.
So it's like, so I'm looking at it, it's like, you're getting there despite yourselves.
But they refused to get him help last year.
And it didn't have to be necessarily another wide receiver. Maybe it's a lineman who can give him a little more time. Whatever. Just find some comment. You have to look at what you need and be like, what's the most pressing need? That's why I use that analogy, the office analogy. I go, you gave me another marketing guy. I've got 4 of them. They're fine. I don't need another marketing guy. Give me the help that I actually need for the problem I actually have. Address the real issue, please. And then by the time they finally started to address some of the issues, it's the defense last year was fine. Was it amazing? No. Was it opportunistic? Yes. It had its moments. It was fine. I've seen worse. But it's that was not an inspired assessment that I just gave you. That was not a rigging endorsement. I said I've seen worse.
Well, and that's why it makes me wonder if Denver picked actually for Green Bay instead of trading picks or anything along those lines. Maybe Denver drafted for Green Bay because that's what maybe that was Green Bay's guy initially. And maybe they are working out something. I don't know. It's one of those in which Green Bay needs defense. Cornerback was a need. Technically, it was a need in Denver too until they picked up two veterans in free agency, and that's the reason why that pick really didn't make any sense, at least from my perspective, because Justin Fields was there, Mac Jones was there, so they didn't go quarterback, even though that technically it's a need. Mm-hmm. If you're not drafting for your future, makes you wonder, okay, what's really going on behind some closed doors?
So what you're saying is, obviously they may have to wait, like you mentioned earlier, they may have to wait until June. So Possibly. It's possible. So it's possible. There may be a deal down the road where it's like, okay, we'll give you the cornerback. You give us Rodgers. And we'll give you a LeBron RP at 25. Where did you get that? I knew it. It was a long con all along. Bring it all together. Bring it all together.
Yep.
I see. If that happens now, you heard it here first. Now you know.
Yes.
Now you know. There were some considerations in the background. Aha! The worlds collide. I see how this works.
And some Doge.
That's right. And some Doge. That's a deal. I will be there to co-sign on that deal, my friend. Hashtag cryptograph. But no, the thing is that it could very well be. Like I said, my thing is, it's not so much acceptance. It's like, look, I would love Rodgers to have kept playing, but this team doesn't know what the hell it's doing. I'm always very, very clear in assessing my team. If I'm not satisfied with my team's performance or what they're doing, and I'm looking at what you're doing and it doesn't make any sense to me, I'm not giving you a pass just because of my team. I'm looking at it going this is question. You have lived such a charmed existence. It is offensive to me as the viewer to go I understand the luxury you have and you've squandered it.
Yep.
And it's okay, well, so like I said, if it comes down the road, hey, if it comes down the road and it goes to Denver, muzzle tough, Steve. Best of luck. Make use out of it. Win something.
Well, it takes them automatically into Super Bowl contention. And that's no team would not take a shot for that opportunity.
That's the thing. There are a bunch of teams who could be we can live with a 1 or 2 year rental. We'll pay him some good money and be all right, man, let's do a couple of years. Let's see what happens. And if it works out, great. And then go host Jeopardy. Good luck. So it's well, I don't think they're going to mind.
No, it's like I said, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that, it comes down to it because I'll be honest, Drew Lock is not the guy. I mean, they picked up Bridgewater for a 6th round pick. And, a lot of people are sitting there saying, okay, well, they didn't draft a quarterback in the 1st round with the 2 guys there as a possibility. So they're going to go with Lock. No, do you not think that Bridgewater's not going to be, buying for that starting job? Hello. It creates competition. Who's to say that if something doesn't happen with Rodgers or Denver doesn't get a quarterback later on in the draft or whatever, that Teddy Bridgewater isn't the starting quarterback next year for the Denver Broncos?
It could be. And the thing is, Teddy Bridgewater's been around the block. It's not he's been okay in stretches of time. It's one of those things that I don't think he's ever fully gotten a fair shake after his initial run.
Well, and he's a partial dual threat. I mean, he can still run. He's not as fast as what he once was, so to speak, because, as you get older, typically you get slower, but that's not always the case.
I've been told Tom Brady gets faster.
And
stronger, and his arm gets more accurate and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I don't buy all of that, but whatever. We won't dig deep into that conversation because we know how you feel about that.
I'm just saying I've been told. I've been told medical science does not apply to this man.
I call BS on that one. But, it's one of those in which anything at this point is better than what we got. And,
Yep.
you know, Locke has talent. I've said it for a long time. He's got talent. He's got upside. The problem is it's almost like he doesn't want to own it. He doesn't want to, you know, be that guy. If he wanted to be that guy, he would be consistently working harder and harder and harder and harder. And it just, to me, I'm not seeing it. So
I think what's going to be interesting, and this is kind of the so like I said, everything we talk about here is a what if. And by the way, guys, as we're chatting along, you know, we're having a chat. But as we're chatting along, if there's anything you want to chime in, obviously I've been putting the comments on as we've been talking. But if there's anything you guys want to chat about, we can. We'll go for a little bit longer and then we'll wind her down. But we'll chat for a bit. But the thing is, the other thought process that I have is that at the end of the day, like I said, I am rooting for you guys because, like I said, I don't think this marriage needs to end. Like I'm annulling it. Let's call it a day here. I can annul it even 15 years on. We can do it. It's okay. It'll be fine. I think these parties have gotten as much as they can out of it. It's done. Let's move on. Plus, I want the Packers to learn a taste of their own medicine. I think they'll be bad. I think they'll be bad for a while, and I think they'll discover what it's like not actually having a quarterback. And they'll find out it's not a good taste. And they're going to find out maybe they actually built really crummy teams that have been masked by quarterback play over a long stretch of time, because it's almost 30 years of quarterback play potentially masking some deficiencies. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
very true.
So we shall see. But and it'd be a good lesson for them to learn. But the bottom line is, if that does come to pass, and let's say the absolute best case scenario plays out, it's almost like a Peyton Manning redux situation. Let's say let's say it happens, and then they get a couple of years. Hey, maybe you get another Super Bowl out of the deal. You know, John Elway's not complaining. I don't think Broncos Steve is complaining, you know. But it's an interesting situation where it's almost like at that point it's like John Elway has demonstrated his only trick is, okay, so what I need is a quarterback who's been basically ditched by his whole team, who's Hall of Fame caliber. I got it.
Yep.
It's like, is that really your only trick? Is that all you can do?
I can't argue against that, but I do want to retort this.
Yeah. Go for it.
Up on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
The difference is, so I don't disagree with that if you're running with Locke or you're running with Bridgewater. But if you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, do you think the offensive coordinator's running the offense? No, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers running the offense.
Yeah, I think they'll make the adjustment.
So I'm just throwing that out there. It was no different when Peyton came in.
Yeah.
Peyton ran that offense. There was no offensive play calls. That was Peyton running the offense pretty much in the huddle and at the line of scrimmage. So under any normal circumstances, I will 100% agree with you. If it's only with who they got right now. If it's somebody like an Aaron Rodgers, that goes out the window because he did it in Green Bay. He's done it in Green Bay for a long time. Yeah, you may see them calling in plays, but do you think that you think he always goes with that? No.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is a master of the game, just like most of your elite quarterbacks. So.
Yep. No, that's fair. And that's always going to be the thing. Is it, like I said, for me, as a fan, I'm still interested. That's why I gave the story of the Favre thing. Is like I was still following Favre in the you know when he went to Green Bay and even the New York Jets thing because I was like I'm fascinated. As a fan, I'm still interested because I'm still a fan of the player, and I appreciate what the player brought to the table, and I appreciate what they did anyway. But I also, like I said, I'll look at the franchise. As I said, I don't let the Dallas Stars off the hook. It's like they have not built strong franchises since the heyday. They slowly. And Bob Gainey gets a lot of credit, but he also was part of the dismantling part as well. But I'll still give him his credit because they built up this team and they built them into a perennial powerhouse. They were able to sustain this period of sustained staying contenders for years. They were able to have, unlike teams that I may have spoken of moments ago, they were able to build a pretty good succession plan between Ed Belfour and Marty Turco. Yep. And Marty Turco was able to hold the fort for quite some time. They never got over the hump again, but the team composition never were able to quite gel the same type of team. But they got some good players. Over time, they would pick up these interesting players that were fun to watch in stretches. But sometimes they would reach to the well a little too much. You know, Eric Lindros might have been a little questionable. Like, maybe not. No. You know, Jaromir Jagr before he became remotivated to start playing again full time. Maybe not. You know, but they would get these guys who were names. And I would sit there going like, even when they had that stretch with Pierre Turgeon, it's like Pierre Turgeon was a good player. He was for quite a long time. And in Dallas, he was still solid. Like, in theory, not a bad idea. Like, he was a good player for his time. But it was like this weird, Bill Guerin, like these weird combinations. It's like, but it's not quite the same. It doesn't quite, it was weird because it was better when you had Brett Hall and, you know, Jamie Langenbrunner. And it's like, but Jamie Langenbrunner is as good as a good, but Jamie Langenbrunner knew his job.
Yep.
He'd come in and he'd do his job. Yuri Lennon, he'd come in and do his job. So you had these guys who would like, so Brett Hall was the scorer. He'd get to his spot, but then it would put the puck there. He'd blast a one-timer. What's he going to do? He's going to do the same play over and over again. That's all he does. But he'll score 35 goals doing that. So it's like, who are you to question it? Let the man do what he does. Ed Belfour will randomly attack people. That's okay. It's fine.
Randomly trip somebody.
Maybe. But it's okay. It's fine. We loved Ed Belfour. We wouldn't want to get near him when he's drunk, but we still liked Ed Belfour.
Little psycho.
But
I was just saying, little psycho.
Yeah. But like, it's okay for goaltenders. That is acceptable. For goaltenders, that is acceptable, and because you know what, he'd stop the puck.
Yep.
He stopped a lot of pucks, and Marty Turco did a lot of that too. And he had a little physicality. Marty Turco would lay in the odd check. I'd see him hit a couple. But that was just the way it was. But they had a good succession between an excellent goaltender to a very good goaltender for a stretch of time. Like, he was a very good goaltender for a while there. But yeah, the team composition wasn't the same, but they stayed contenders for a while. And then they kind of became also-rans. And it kind of plays into this a little bit. Jamie Benn was supposed to be the chosen one. He was the next one. The timing was perfect. His first season was Modano's last season. Like, the unofficial torch was handed over. He won a scoring title. He did all these things. And he had enough size to be a little bit physical, and he had a little bit of scoring touch. He scored 40 goals and things like that. It was good. And then, like a stone. I can't explain it. I have no idea what the hell happened to Jamie Benn. And like I said, I still collect Jamie Benn cards. The current mail day has a Jamie Benn card in it. So I'll still pick up stuff.
It seems like Dallas has got some good, solid young talent, though, at least from what I've noticed.
I will say when I see breaks, I feel like every 5 seconds I see another young Dallas star player. I'll see Jason. I think it's Jason Robertson.
Yes, I think so.
I think
that's his name.
Yeah, and he seems to be impressive from the little bits I've caught of his game. Heiskanen has been impressive. So it's like, okay, there's some good pieces here. Like, there's good pieces. I just don't know. Like, to put it this way. We love Ed Belfour around here, Hockey Guy. We love Ed. Steve's from Texas, so he loves Ed Belfour, but so do I. You can't see it, but if you go directly above the Raleigh Fingers picture, there's an Ed Belfour autograph 8x10 up there. Actually, it'd be right here above the Modano, but it's there. But yeah, for whatever reason. Now, part of the reason for this is that just having talent isn't enough. It's what we talked about a moment ago. When I talked about Green Bay. Green Bay has almost been a victim of their own success. We're having those players. When you have these players that are able to mask a lot of things, you can stay relevant, but then you almost rest on your laurels and be like, oh, so we must be one piece away. It's like, no, you're not one piece away. You're actually a couple of pieces away, and you would probably get over the top if you would get those couple of pieces. But you actually have to go get them. You can't just sit there staring at it going like, it'll probably be fine. Run it back. No, that isn't. No, that's how you waste somebody's prime. That's usually how that works.
Sure.
So we'll see. A lot of those guys are super young. A lot of those players are young guns of this year, and right now that's a lot of what they do. But by the time they get good, is there going to be anything left? Because I don't trust the goaltending situation in Dallas, and it's kind of the same problem, is that when they were at their best the last couple of years, with Ben playing well and with them all playing well, and Tyler Seguin's a good player. Like, they've got good players. It's not the issue. It's that Okay. Can I trust you? Right now, they're making a playoff push, which is to say, after being in the Stanley Cup final, they might not make the playoffs. Which is
Yeah, I saw that they were doing pretty good, and then all of a sudden it was like, what the heck? They just started falling apart.
yeah. But I don't remember. I feel like I did say it. It might have been again in one of the streams. I thought the possibility was real good that they would follow up the Stanley Cup final with not making the playoffs. Because it was a charmed existence to get there. Like it was, everything had to go right. You got so many beautiful bounces. Everything worked. And then you expect that again? Because it was a very unique season in structure and the amount of playoff spots, the round robin playing, which by the way, the Stars played terrible in the round robin. And then they went on a run. Like I said, they beat a young Colorado team who would probably crush them this year if they went and redid that matchup. There's a couple of those matchups where they tried it again, they would not win. They got very fortunate. I like this, John B. And Rodgers has been traded for the WFT.
Washington football team.
Yeah. I feel like though he was trying to say NFT. Which I would appreciate. But if it's Washington football team, hey, I appreciate it. Is that the official acronym now? Is that what we're going with?
Well, that's the way I took it initially, but
yeah, I feel like it's NFT. By the way, the NFT might be a good deal. You never know. I still like my deal. I think if you guys have the LeBron RPA, you might have this deal in the bag. We can't know for sure, man. $5.2 million is a bargain for an NFL team.
Yeah, well, whatever helps, right?
Listen, that's like a high-end kicker. That's not a lot of money for an NFL franchise.
The Washington WTFs. In other words, whatever the F they want to be called.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I would rather. They did a poll. I think they're doing a poll with the fans to try to finally figure out a name for the team. But football team is still on the list. And I go, listen, if I was a Washington fan, I would vote for football team. I'll have you know, football team almost beat the Buccaneers, and it would have been the perfect Cinderella story. Tom Brady beaten by football team. Yes, football team, indeed. Roll with it, guys. Just roll with it. It's perfect. Leave it alone. It's fine. Anyway, what are you gonna do? You gotta have fun. You gotta have fun with this stuff, Steve. It's
no,
not
absolutely.
It's not none of it's serious. You gotta have fun with it.
No, I don't live or die based on what Denver does or what they don't do by any stretch of the imagination. I'm very passionate, but at the same time, I've had a lot of heartbreak, a lot of disappointment, but a lot of good times. But
it's true. But I think though, in fairness, I don't think it's too bad when you consider that at this point, it's like, Super Bowl 50 is not that far in the past, so not too bad. Could be worse. Definitely be worse.
Yeah.
And at least you had 2 cracks at that one.
That is true. That is true. Of course, I would like to forget the one against Seattle because I have no idea what the hell happened in that game.
That is true. That is fair.
That is. I can honestly say that's the only Super Bowl that Denver has been in my years of being alive and can remember, of course, that I turned off after this. I don't even think I made it to halftime. It was
because I think the initial fumble, wasn't it like in one of the first couple snaps?
Oh, the safety was on
right
their first drive. It was like the first or second snap.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, we can come back from that. I mean, nerves, whatever. And all of a sudden,
that's foreboding. It's like right out of the box.
Yeah.
That's not a good look.
But then as I'm watching, I'm sitting there going, no, I can't watch this. This is bad. This is bad.
Nice.
So I shut it off.
No,
there was not a chance that they were going to win that game. After watching the way that they played, it's almost as if the offense didn't even bother to show up.
mean, that was horrible.
Well,
Horrible.
it's not like they had a record-breaking offense that year. Yes, it is. It wasn't the touchdown record broken that year and a couple other things.
Yeah.
It's like that's a reversal right there.
Well, that's why they always say defense wins championships. Number one offense versus the number one defense. And you saw what happened.
In fairness, that team should have won. In fairness, that Seattle team should have won back-to-back. I'm just saying reasons.
I don't disagree with that. That was piss poor call by a certain coach.
Indeed.
Just throwing that out there.
That's fair. Anyway, so guys, we've been having some fun here. I buy a Weasel's hat. Just saying, I like it. Putting the proper thing here. There you go. Timmy Smith in the Hall of Fame.
We won't go there either.
Yep. So anyway, guys, so what we'll do is I think we'll wind her down. Any last minute things, you can quickly put it in there, but I'll quickly plug a couple of things. So like I said, we mentioned already Steve and Amish Dave Archer. They have their podcast on Tuesdays. It's a Revolution podcast, 8:05 p.m. Eastern time. If you want to check it out on the channel of that name. Dave's gotten a lot better about the plugs, though. I do appreciate that he's gotten a lot better about the shameless plugs. You got to do the shameless plugs.
Yes,
Bob,
yes, you do.
we will shamelessly plug some of Bobby's stuff as well once the website's done. We know it's there. We know there is a website. It will appear. If you can find what should have been called the Burrell, but if you can find a couple of Bobby's books, they are available on eBay.
Actually, that reminds me, I better list another. I just sold one.
There you go. You might have a crack at it. There you go. You might have first crack if you check out eBay soon.
Yeah.
So which is that the newer?
The newer one, yeah. The other older one, everybody's asking for it. I can't find it.
Nice. Okay, so that's fair. So there you go. You might get a crack at it directly from the source. There you go. So now you know.
Awesome.
Second thing I'll mention real quick is that, like I mentioned earlier, no live stream on Sunday. I have an idea for a video. If I get it done, I will publish it on Sunday, and that will be kind of in the place of it. We may get back to the live streams on Sunday later, but right now, for the moment, it doesn't make sense to do that because, like I said, things are kind of on a chill. And to be honest with you, I've spent a lot of my downtime, the extra time that I have, other than work stuff. I spend my time kind of enjoying my stuff in my collection now. I've been doing some sorting through some stuff because, frankly, I didn't want to do it, but I'm like, I should probably get on to that. Turns out if you sort the stuff by brands, it's like, oh, I got a lot of Upper Deck cards. Oh, so many. It's like, I really do feel like I need to hire somebody to sort it. I don't want to do it. Maybe Bob clearly enjoys sorting cards. Maybe I should just leave it for Bob to do it. Maybe that's the deal. Maybe that's the ticket. Lewis, get on this. You sort them. I don't even want to look at them.
He's falling behind though too.
It's true. I'll be honest with you. You know what kills me about it is that the more current ones are better because they would start putting the year and the brand on the back of the card. But for the earlier ones, it's like, I'm pretty sure I know what year this is, but sometimes I look at it and go, I think I know what year this is, but you're looking at the copyright date and you're trying your best to like reverse engineer from the copyright, but sometimes that's not completely accurate. Upper Deck messes with you because they'll use two different copyright dates for the same season. I'm like, come on, guys. You're killing me, man.
That's where going to the Beckett sometimes comes in handy, or go and do a random search on eBay.
It does, but sometimes Beckett doesn't use the numbering system they use on the back of the card.
That's true too.
Like they'll do the thing with the letters, but then on the online guide, they'll use like, 13. There is no 13. It's WST D7. It's not 13.
Yep.
Hashtag Beckett problems. You can figure it out usually, but it's like, come on, man.
Bobby is staying silent on that one. He still has himself on mute.
Bobby loves Beckett. We established this earlier. He thinks it's the ultimate authority on the hobby of all things.
I've been doing my searches for the last little while, having fun. You got to get them done every day if you miss something.
Nice. No, that's true. That's true. One thing I will recommend though for everybody, just as we wind down here, one thing I'll recommend to everybody who's hanging out. By the way, thank you for hanging out. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for the comments and questions. It's been fun. One thing I'll recommend to you guys, obviously, as we get into the summertime, you'll be outside doing things. Hopefully, maybe depending on where you are. So whatever the situation is for you, do whatever you can. But enjoy. Right now, I find it's been a lot of fun. Just sit back and just enjoy the stuff you already have. In that vein, even the sorting stuff, which is a little annoying, it is fun to put some of the stuff away, get it, because guess what? That's kind of free. If you already got your stuff, you don't really have to, and you can maybe get a chance to take a look at some of the stuff you already got. Maybe there's some cool stuff there that you haven't looked at in a while, and it's kind of nice to see that. You don't have to be buying stuff all the time. I find that there's not as much stuff that I'm interested in. When I do find something interesting, I'll go after it aggressively, but I'm okay with not buying anything for a little while. It's okay.
Delayed gratification works.
Well, it's also nice to be a little bit pickier, a little selective. Like my checklist has enough stuff where if I just want to knock off lines and I just will pick anything at random, I can buy 150 things a week. No problem. Yeah. But it's like, okay, so I'm spending a lot of money, but am I feeling any accomplishment or am I feeling any better at the end of it? Not necessarily. But if it's something cool, then I can have a little bit of fun with it. And okay, that's fun. That's nice. Not just everything. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to buy everything every 5 minutes. And if you don't find anything to, then don't. Enjoy that you save some money.
True.
I'm sure the hobby will find something else for you to spend money on next week. So it's okay. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Anyway, so that's it for us. Yep. Thanks to Bobby and Steve for hanging out for a little bit. And we got a little bit of draft talk in there. I didn't wear my uniform in vain. I got to enjoy it while I can, you know. I'll still wear, even if he does get traded, I will wear my Aaron Rodgers jersey, ironically, for whatever team he ends up with. It'll be funny for me. I'll put it beside my Favre Jets jersey. Maybe I'll wear that one for one of these things. We'll have a little fun with that one. Go old school. Go proper old school. That's how it's done. Anyway, so that's it for us. We will catch you on the next one. It'll be next Friday, and then we'll be back on here. Same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll go as long as the chat wants to go and as long as people want to hang out. So we'll do that. And maybe we'll have some more stuff to talk about. Maybe, like I said, Ken Golden could always light himself on fire. That's always a possibility. I throw that out to you. I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying he could. And if he does, we'll talk about it. Anyway, so that's it for us. Have yourselves a good night. Enjoy your Saturday. It is now May the 1st. You have now made it to the 5th month of this year, 2021. Good luck with that. See you next time.
I don't.